Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports for another daily live Formula 1 news video, and going straight into it today, how did Mercedes and Ferrari fall foul of Formula 1's plank rules? Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc's post-race disqualification at the US Grand Prix was the first time in years that cars have fallen foul of Formula 1's plank rules. In fact, there have been remarkably few times in Formula 1's history that planks have been found to have worn down too much, with the most famous still being Michael Schumacher's disqualification from the '94 Belgian Grand Prix. This makes it even more intriguing that in an area of the car that teams are very mindful of, This makes it even more intriguing that in an area of the car that teams are very mindful of, there being no room for error, two of the top squads tripped up on the same race weekend. The explanations of how the rule breaches happened seem to be clear, which is why both teams had to simply accept their fate with the stewards. As Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff said, there's no wiggle room in the rules. We need to take it on the chin, do the learning, and come back stronger. The tolerance between success and failure over plank legality is tiny, given that there can be no more than 1 millimeter of wear between a freshly fitted plank and one that's gone through all the rigors of a race. To check compliance within the rules, the FIA is able to measure wear on the plank at 4 50mm diameter holes drilled into the surface at specific locations designated within the regulations. In the instance of Leclerc and Hamilton, it was the rearmost hole that failed their tests. This hole must be positioned at the car's centerline between 825mm and 1025mm ahead of the rear axle line. As can be seen from the main image, this in itself offers some variability as to how wear can occur on different cars, given that there is no specific point for the draw hole, unlike the 3 holes at the front of the plank. The draw holes made in the plank are surrounded by flush-mounted titanium skid plates. These offer further protection from wear and are also tightly regulated in their design. This is an area that the FIA has been closely monitoring with the new generation of cars, and it has served several technical directives as a response to inconsistencies in their design already. One interesting discussion point after disqualifications was that the FIA did not check the planks of all the other cars on the grid. This is standard procedure though, as it would be impossible for the governing body to check compliance of every aspect of every car. It is why it selects random elements every time from random cars at the bid to check compliance throughout the grid. On this occasion, Max Verstappen's RB19, Charles Leclerc's FF23, and Lewis Hamilton's W14, alongside Lando Norris's MCL60, were all chosen to have their planks checked. The Red Bull and McLaren were given the all clear, whereas the Ferrari and Mercedes were not. The technical reason for why their planks were worn down too much is simple to explain. Their cars were running too low to the ground throughout the race on the Grand Prix race weekend. The cause of this revolves around the choice of ride height, something that teams play around over each weekend. But it can also be influenced by fuel loads and even DRS use, as the aero load comes on and off the car. Teams normally have plenty of time on a Grand Prix race weekend to get their ride height into their sweet spot. But the car is low enough. Teams normally have plenty of time on a Grand Prix weekend to get their ride height into a sweet spot where the plank is not in danger of being worn away, but the car is low enough to deliver maximum performance. However, this balance has proved harder to manage at sprint races, with teams just having one practice session to get their car dialed in for the entire race weekend. As a consequence of the more condensed timetable, there is an inability to cover the qualifying and long-run programs that are regularly done. Any ride height calculations made during this FP1 session must account for the additional competitive running that is added into the weekend schedule, as there are extra competitive sessions taking place once the cars are locked in. Furthermore, teams are not able to change the plank as freely as they normally are once the cars are in parc fermé, so there is a certain element of guesswork going on. We have already seen times this year, like with Alpine and Baku, where teams have realised after the sprint that the ride heights were too low, and that there was a risk of the plank being worn too much in the main race. Cars have then been pulled out of parc fermé to make the ride height changes and started from the pit lane. Ferrari revealed after the race that it had spent time during its FP1 racing the ride height of its cars, in order to find an optimum range for the race weekend, once it became clear how bumpy the track was. But it clearly did not raise the ride height enough. Intriguingly, it also suggested that the weather may have played a factor in how things played out. A stronger wind intensity that was originally forecast along with the change in direction perhaps meant that the car was being forced down further in areas of the track that it had in practice, pushing the plank on the ground. The situation though at Austin was also made more complicated by the bumpy nature of the circuit, which was described by Verstappen as not being up to Formula 1 standards. Another potential factor would also be related to the tyres, as it may not be a coincidence that two cars that fell foul of the plank issues were also those that ran extended opening stints. We know that as the tyres wear, there's less tread left, which not only reduces grip, but means that the temperature is also able to escape. This can result in lower pressures as tyres get towards the end of their life, and that has the consequence of a lower ride height. In both Hamilton and Leclerc's case, they ran longer first stints on the medium tyre in order to create a strategic offset to Verstappen and Norris, with Leclerc opting to make a one-stop strategy work against his rivals on two stoppers. This could have opened the door for an extra plank wear in this period of the race, when the car was still quite heavy on fuel. All these above elements came together to push the Mercedes and the Ferrari outside of the tolerated window. As Mercedes trackside engineer director Andrew Chauvelin explained, unfortunately it is one of the pitfalls of the sprint format, where we have a solitary hour of running before Parc Fermé. Without running at a full race fuel load in FP1, combined with a circuit as bumpy as this in parts of the track where the drivers have to put the car during the bumpy Grand Prix, have contributed to the higher than expected wear levels. We will go away from this weekend and learn from this though. It will be very interesting to see if at bumpy sprint venues with Interlagos coming up, teams will now change their programs in FP1 to ensure that they get at least one run on heavy fuel to better understand their ride height implications for the Grand Prix race weekend. Certainly very interesting to see what happened to Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton this Grand Prix race weekend. Certainly wasn't what we were expecting. It was certainly quite late after the Grand Prix. I think I'd already gone to bed, and then they announced the fact that Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton were eliminated from the Grand Prix. Certainly a big shock, but the rules are rules, as Toto Wolff has gone on and said, and unfortunately those two drivers were disqualified from the race. And unfortunately Lewis Hamilton went on to lose a podium position, which of course we're very upset about, because he was doing quite well in the race on Sunday. As we move on to an article speaking about how Mercedes I had another one here. How Mercedes moved closer to Red Bull with their new floor upgrades. Mercedes have struggled in 2023 ever since the rule... Mercedes have struggled in Formula 1 ever since the rule and regulation changes that were introduced in 2022. However, things seem to be going in the right direction at the US Grand Prix, where Lewis Hamilton managed to get the edge over both Ferrari and McLaren before being disqualified together with Leclerc for excessive wear on the skid plank. For Mercedes though, this disqualification is irrelevant in the long run because Lewis Hamilton has been able to close the gap on Max Verstappen. Despite the sprint weekend, which means that the teams have only an hour to set up the car, Mercedes brought a completely new floor. The new solution was characterized by new Venturi inlets, a revised floor edge, and also a different shape of the floor around the lower impact structure, which is allocated inside the floor of the car. It is possible to see all the changes highlighted with the blue arrows. The Venturi inlet has an entirely new shape compared to the previous version, with the distance between the floor edge and the two inside elements have been increased. This change was made to increase the amount of air being pushed underneath the car, and thus converted into downforce. This improves the car's behavior, especially in the high-speed corners. The floor edge has the same shape as the previous one though, but the race section has been inclined further, and the two vortex generators at its exit have changed too, with a more square space to better manage the incoming turbulence from the front tyres. This makes the flow underneath as undisturbed as possible, intending to generate a low pressure area. All these changes aim to increase the downforce generated under the car and increase the W14's rear stability in low speed corners. The floor also allowed the car to run at lower ride heights. The effects of this new package were visible and were very quick on the new Mercedes upgrades. The car has been very fast, especially with These effects of the new package were visibly very quick, and the car has been very fast, especially in the first sector, allowing Hamilton not only to fight for pole on both Friday and Saturday, but also to challenge Verstappen on the Sunday. The British driver, in fact, expressed his good impressions and praised the team's effort after the Friday qualifying, going on to say, I think it'll just be a showing of resilience and strength and depth from our team. I think we had a difficult year last year. Even to the start of this year, we didn't expect to be where we are. Things on the other side of the garage were quite different though, with George Russell, who struggled to find pace all weekend, finishing only P5 after Hamilton and Leclerc's disqualifications. Ferrari and McLaren both made similar choices for what concerned to be setup. In fact, the teams decided to use a medium downforce rear wing, which could have helped during qualifying since it proves higher top speeds and a good balance over one lap, but cost them in the race as the rear tires suffered a lot. Despite the same choice, the MCL60 was still good in the race and in qualifying. It was a stable car in both high speed and in the slow speed hairpins, whereas the SF23 looked good in qualifying, but as they added more fuel, the car struggled a lot in making the tyres last. However, while Norris managed to bring the race home in P2 eventually, and Sainz got P3 for the Maranello team, Leclerc tried a one-stop race, which caused his decline down to P5. You certainly had to wonder what the Ferraris were doing on that race weekend, putting Leclerc out on a one-stop strategy. Really, I think they really did compromise his race by sending him out on a one-stop strategy, and unfortunately, he didn't have the degradation that they were hoping for. He wasn't necessarily being able to keep up with the drivers ahead of him. They were being able to overtake him. And then when he did come into the pits eventually, it was a little bit too late for him, unfortunately. But going back to Lewis Hamilton, he had a better race weekend. He was able to challenge for some of those top positions throughout the entire Grand Prix race weekend. Disappointing that he was disqualified for that floor being under the regulated amount that is tolerated. But at least we know that the Mercedes are slowly being able to improve on their pace, and hopefully next weekend out in Mexico, or rather this weekend out in Mexico, we should see a resurgent Mercedes, and I'm sure we will see a relatively hungry McLaren and a relatively hungry Lewis Hamilton to get on that podium position and to get another win in Formula 1. Moving over to another article saying the unknown legality of other Formula 1 cars in the US Grand Prix exposes an awkward reality. The disqualifications of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc from the US Grand Prix raised an uncomfortable thought: how many other Formula 1 cars were illegal but weren't caught? Hamilton's Mercedes and Leclerc's Ferrari were just 2 of 4 cars that went under a physical flaw and plank inspection check, whereas the others of Max Verstappen's race-winning Red Bull and McLaren's Lando Norris used let me carry on from the beginning again. Hamilton's Mercedes and Leclerc's Ferrari were just 2 of 4 cars to undergo a physical flaw and plank wear inspection check. The others were Max Verstappen's race-winning Red Bull and McLaren's Lando Norris, who went on to finish 3rd. Both passed the checks, compared to Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, who didn't. But the remaining 16 cars, who knows whether they would have passed? They could all be legal and be illegal, or a mix of the two. The point is that we do not know. We don't know about the second Ferrari that inherited a podium because the disqualification of 2 cars did not mean that their respective sister cars had to be automatically checked as well. There's no guarantee that Carlos Sainz's Ferrari or George Russell's Mercedes would have been found to be illegal, as setups can be slightly different between cars, as different approaches from drivers to curb usage, for example, can mean that all important few tenths of a millimeter difference in plank wear by the end of the Grand Prix could make all that difference. And we don't know whether any of the other cars that scored points in this race broke the plank rules either. Or any cars outside the top 10 either. In fact, checking the floor and plank isn't always on the to-do list, at least based on what the FIA discloses. There appears to have been no plank checks carried out at the Qatar or Japan Grand Prix, for example, and none at some other races earlier in the season. The last physical floor and plank wear inspections appear to have been carried out post-race before the US Grand Prix was in Singapore, on Verstappen's Red Bull and Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin. This is presumably because of the risk of plank wear was perceived to be a lot lower at the intervening races. This ties in with the FIA being able to target problem areas when it sees fit. And as the disqualified teams acknowledged in Austin, the nature of the circuit and the sprint race weekend format clearly created the potential for some plank trouble, which makes it likely that the officials specifically wanted to check the leading cars for compliance. But the selective scrutineering process means that there could be other cars further down the grid who have got away with it simply because they were not checked. The FIA has access to a vast amount of data, including last year's new aerodynamic oscillation metric. Maybe this guides the officials onto where to look, but even if so, it's only a clue of where to look. It provides nothing in itself. And that's the point. The FIA has good reason to want to check some of the leading cars, and found that 2 of them were illegal. It is not a grand leap to think of some of the other 16 might have failed the same checks too, so why not be sure? It is important to note that it is, to a degree, just a frustrating reality that we have to accept. While the FIA's post-race scrutineering checks are extensive, they are not, and they cannot, be all-encompassing, nor should they be. Some stuff simply does not merit every part of every car being checked. Short of keeping hold of the cars for days after the race, a degree of discretion has to be applied. For example, every car is weighed for obvious reasons, just like every car has its starting tyres checked. But in Austin, only the Red Bull of Sergio Perez, Lando Norris's McLaren, and the AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda were subjected to a battery of surface aerodynamic components and bodywork tests, just like the floor edges and front and rear wings. There are then much more extensive checks of one car, genuinely picked at random afterwards. Streamlining scrutineering is a necessary practicality, and there's also an argument for not telegraphing to teams what is being checked when and when. Otherwise, someone will eventually try to game the system and take a chance at a race where the technical rule X will not be checked. But many might assume that plank wear, given the implications it has for how low cars can run, falls under the category of should always be assessed, and what happened in Austin may well serve as a new example of how scrutineering will evolve for the future. Certainly it was an interesting Grand Prix race weekend, and we have been speaking a lot about these flaws on these Formula 1 cars, and I will be making an in-depth analysis of what happened in the Austin Grand Prix. But we have to think, do we need more consistent checks from the FIA throughout every race car? Of course it is. Unfortunately, not necessarily possible to do because there are 20 cars and you can't necessarily have every single FIA delegate going onto every single Formula 1 car and having to check it. It is just going to take too long, unfortunately, and they need to move these cars to the next Grand Prix race weekend, which, of course, could come one race after the other, like this weekend, where we're moving straight away to Mexico. I see we have a couple comments there in the comment section. Mark saying hello and saying, cannot believe Hamilton and Leclerc got disqualified. Surely if both got disqualified, every single car should have been checked. Yes, I surely agree with that. As we move on to another Formula 1 technical analysis. Looking at Alonso's car and why the upgrade risk did not reason, as why the upgrades risk was not the reason behind Aston Martin's Grand Prix slump in Austin. The team has suffered a poor weekend with both cars out of the points in the sprint and near the back of the Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso feels, though, that Aston Martin was right to bring its big upgrade to the US Grand Prix, despite the risk of it being a sprint race weekend. When the alternate Formula 1 format is in use, drivers and teams have only a single 60-minute practice session to set their cars up before they enter Parc Fermé. Major setup changes are then banned for the remainder of the weekend, making it important to hit the ground running in the practice session with two-thirds less time available to evaluate new parts as in a normal Grand Prix race weekend. It is for this reason that some teams do not bring big upgrades to sprint races, as a bad practice can have major ramifications for the rest of the weekend. Aston Martin went on to bring a big package to Austin, but brake issues limited the team's running in the sole practice. With both cars out in Q1 and qualifying, there was a non-score in the sprint for them as well. Despite the upgrade risk, Alonso is sure that this is not the heart of the problems with the AMR23. The frustration was not really increasing in the race because we'd been on the same page the whole weekend, said Alonso. We were uncompetitive in FP1, in qualifying and in the sprint. The car has been in parc ferme since FP1, and maybe we were not optimized in terms of setup. We want to think that with more free practice time, you would have had the time to test many different combinations of setups and different ways of optimizing the new package. It was also a bit risky to bring the upgrades here on the sprint race weekend, as you rely so much on a perfect FP1, with two cars doing different testing between the two. We had a very chaotic FP1, and since then we have been on the back foot, he said. It is not like the previous package, which was fast enough to guarantee places in the top 10. We have been struggling for months, and the whole factory is working flat out the whole factory had been delivering flat out to deliver this package for Austin. You cannot say though at the last moment, okay, we will wait for Mexico, because everyone was working day and night to bring these new parts. The biggest problem that we had though was in FP1 the biggest problem we had was many issues in FP1 that we will need to address. I wish to go on to the Mexican Grand Prix soon, where we will have 3 free practice sessions to test many things on the car and hopefully find more pace and be more competitive. It was unfortunately a painful weekend. Certainly was a very painful weekend for Fernando Alonso, where he didn't have the greatest finish there. I think he even had to retire from the race if I was not mistaken. Just looking at the standings. That is unfortunately the entire weekend standings. Let me look at the race results here. Fernando Alonso, yes, did DNF, unfortunately, because he was putting up with some, I think, still brake issues on his car. Very disappointing, but at least his teammate Lance Stroll was able to get that Aston Martin a little bit higher up the grid than we would have expected. He got up into P7 at the end of the race with that two-place grid jump because of the disqualifications from Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Yep, disappointing weekend for Aston Martin. Hopefully they'll be able to hit the ground running in Mexico this next weekend out. As we move on to another article speaking about Lando Norris, who has hailed McLaren's progress after a 4th straight podium, but conceded that they did not have enough to win the US Grand Prix. Lando Norris went on to say that McLaren are making great progress, but did not have enough to win this weekend's US Grand Prix, after the Briton came 3rd, later promoted to P2 after Lewis Hamilton's DQ. Lando Norris made a great getaway from 2nd and got ahead of the pole sitter Charles Leclerc to take the lead on the opening lap of the race. He led for the majority of the first half, before eventually race winner Max Verstappen breezed past him. The McLaren driver, though, looked to be hanging on to 3-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, but lost ground as the race wore on, before Lewis Hamilton, on a fresh set of medium tyres, came racing past for 2nd place. Norris, though, was able to hold on to 3rd, his 4th podium in a row now, but was later promoted to 2nd following Hamilton's disqualification. He went on to say, "But I'm happy. It was a good race from my side. We knew our struggles, and we knew what was going to be difficult today. And it was just degradation." But the pace over the first 10 laps of every stint, the pace in the beginning, was very strong. I just couldn't hold on though long enough. We are getting there though. Progress every race weekend. Just some more steps are needed. Norris put up a staunch defence to try and keep Hamilton behind when the two went wheel to wheel late in the affair. When asked about the battle with his compatriot, Norris went on to say, I mean, I had to try right, but I just couldn't do it. I didn't have enough tyres left at the end. You saw how quickly he pulled away. I also had to look after my own race. I did the best that I could. I had to push and look after the tyres, and it was too difficult today. Maybe if it was a cooler track, it would have been more suited to us. But it wasn't. I'm still happy though. The team have done an excellent job. To finish on the podium here was better than we were expecting coming into the race weekend, so I am very happy. His teammate Oscar Piastri had an eventful start to the outing in Austin, as he started 10th but made his way up into 6th after the first lap. However, on his way up the field, he collided with the Alpine of Esteban Ocon at turn 2. Ocon went on to retire a few laps later with terminal damage from the incident, while McLaren called Piastri in not too long after to park after his radiator harmed McLaren MCL60 was unable to finish the Grand Prix. However, speaking after jumping out of the cockpit, the Australian could not confirm what caused the issue. I just went round the outside, said Piastri as he explained what happened at the start. I don't know if Ocon was had a bit of a moment on the bump or whatever, but just a bit of a contact on the exit, and I think it must have broken one of the radiators, or maybe it was just an isolated issue. I'm not sure, but something on the right side of the car broke. After scoring 2 consecutive podiums in Japan and Qatar, as well as a sprint race victory in Lusail, Piastri endured a difficult weekend, as he failed to score a point across the sprint and the race. Reflecting on the weekend as a whole, he went on to say, "Definitely not one of my best weekends. I think the sprint was clearly not very strong. I think today, though, was looking a fair bit better. But some things to try and work and improve. I think I was improving throughout the race weekend. I think that they are. I think around here, it is also very tricky to get it all together. So, character building weekend, but these are the things and the kind of weekends that are very important in my first season. So definitely we will try and learn what I can." Great to see though that the McLarens are being able to challenge consistently for the top of the grid. We've certainly hoped that they will be able to hit the ground running again next season and be able to challenge from the first race on to the end of the season. It is going to become a major battle of the upgrades next season. We're going to have to wait and see who is going to start the season on the top foot, and then we're going to have to see who is going to be able to continuously keep up consistently in terms of the development for next year. Looking at our poll that was put up here before the beginning of this live stream, I went on to ask who was your standout driver from the US Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton with 62%, Max Verstappen with 25%, Albon with no percent, and other with 12%. Do be sure to let us know in the comment section if you did vote for other. As we move on to our final article here today, Verstappen went on to send a message to the booing fans after a hostile podium welcome. The Dutchman was met with a chorus of boos after securing the US Grand Prix victory. Max Verstappen has welcomed the hostile reception though from fans at the Circuit of the Americas after his victory in the US Grand Prix. The Dutchman secured his 50th Formula 1 race win by holding off a late charge from Mercedes Lewis Hamilton in what was a thrilling strategic battle in Austin. Verstappen, whose dominance over the rest of the field has meant that his driver's title was wrapped up at the previous race in Qatar, was met with boos while completing his Parc Fermé interview with 2009 champion Jenson Button. Speculation on social media has suggested that some of the booing was directed towards Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, though. The persistence throughout the time in which Verstappen made his way from the car to podium demonstrated vitriol was directed towards him. Hamilton, in contrast, was cheered throughout the race weekend, and with 2021 rivalry between the two creating a partisan atmosphere at the various races since that season, both drivers have been targeted in the past. Another factor of Verstappen at COTA was the large presence of a Mexican fan base, turning out in support of his teammate Sergio Perez. With their relationship having been fractured over the season, you have to think that also that could be a contributing factor. Max Verstappen went on to say though, and ask if he was annoyed, he went on to say, no. In the end, I'm the one that takes the silverware home, so it is all fine by me. Formula 1 moves on to the Mexican Grand Prix this weekend, with a similar situation likely to arise. If you expected a more hostile reception at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, Verstappen insisted that it is still me who will be bringing home the silverware. So Verstappen's still confident that despite all the boos from the Formula 1 fans, he still thinks that he does not care, and he is all too happy to be taking home all that silverware from these race weekends. Certainly, you have to think Max Verstappen doesn't really care. He is in the absolute peak of his Formula 1 career at the moment, and is doing phenomenally right now in his Formula 1 career. But that is it from me here today on Forever Motorsport. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for voting in the comment section, for voting in that poll, for letting us know all of your opinions on the comment section. Do be sure to check out all of our other stats content on the channel, and do be sure to join me for tomorrow's live video here on the same place at the same time. Hello and welcome to Forever Sports. My name is Reece. I'll be talking to you a little bit today about one of our channel partners, BITDEFENDER. BITDEFENDER is a global leader in cyber security. BITDEFENDER is committed to defending people all around the globe against cyber attacks, as well as to transform people's digital experiences. In the next 6 months, Forever Sports will be covering major tournaments such as the Rugby Championship, the Premier League, the remainder of the Formula 1 season, as well as embarking on the biggest Rugby World Cup YouTube campaign ever. To ensure that these are all a success, it is imperative that the Forever Sports channels and platforms remain uncompromised. And with BITDEFENDER, we can be assured that our cybersecurity needs are being taken care of. To read more on BITDEFENDER, please be sure to check the links in the description of our video. Once again, thank you very much to our partner, BITDEFENDER, for joining the channel. I've been Reece here on Forever Sports. Thank you very much. How did Mercedes and Ferrari fall foul of Formula 1's plank rules? Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc's post-race disqualification at the US Grand Prix was the first time in years that cars have fallen foul of Formula 1's plank rules. In fact, there have been remarkably few times in Formula 1's history that planks have been found to have worn down too much, with the most famous still being Michael Schumacher's disqualification from the '94 Belgian Grand Prix. This makes it even more intriguing that in an area of the car that teams are very mindful of, there being no room for error, two of the top squads tripped up on the same race weekend. The explanations of how the rule breaches happened seem to be clear, which is why both teams had to simply accept their fate with the stewards. As Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff said, there's no wiggle room in the rules. We need to take it on the chin, do the learning, and come back stronger. The tolerance between success and failure over plank legality is tiny, given that there can be no more than 1 millimeter of wear between a freshly fitted plank and one that's gone through all the rigors of a race. To check compliance within the rules, the FIA is able to measure wear on the plank at 4 50mm diameter holes drilled into the surface at specific locations designated within the regulations. In the instance of Leclerc and Hamilton, it was the rearmost hole that failed their tests. This is an area that the FIA has been closely monitoring with the new generation of cars, and it has served several technical directives as a response to inconsistencies in their design already. One interesting discussion point after disqualifications was that the FIA did not check the planks of all the other cars on the grid. This is standard procedure though, as it would be impossible for the governing body to check compliance of every aspect of every car. It is why it selects random elements every time from random cars in the bid to check compliance throughout the grid. On this occasion, Max Verstappen's RB19, Charles Leclerc's FF23, and Lewis Hamilton's W14, alongside Lando Norris's MCL60, were all chosen to have their planks checked. The Red Bull and McLaren were given the all clear, whereas the Ferrari and Mercedes were not. The technical reason for why their planks were worn down too much is simple to explain. Their cars were running too low to the ground throughout the Grand Prix race weekend. The cause of this revolves around the choice of ride height, something that teams play around over each weekend. But it can also be influenced by fuel loads and even DRS use, as the aero load comes on and off the car. Teams normally have plenty of time in a Grand Prix weekend to get their ride height into a sweet spot where the plank is not in danger of being worn away, but the car is low enough to deliver maximum performance. However, this balance has proved harder to manage at sprint races, with teams just having one practice session to get their car dialed in for the entire race weekend. As a consequence of the more condensed timetable, there is an inability to cover the qualifying and long-run programs that are regularly done. Any ride height calculations made during this FP1 session must account for the additional competitive running that is added into the weekend schedule, as there are extra competitive sessions taking place once the cars are locked in. Furthermore, teams are not able to change the plank as freely as they normally are once the cars are in parc fermé, so there is a certain element of guesswork going on. We have already seen times this year, like with Alpine and Baku, where teams have realised after the sprint that the ride heights were too low, and that there was a risk of the plank being worn too much in the main race. Cars have then been pulled out of parc fermé to make the ride height changes and started from the pit lane. Ferrari revealed after the race that it had spent time during its FP1 racing the ride height of its cars, in order to find an optimum range for the race weekend, once it became clear how bumpy the track was. But it clearly did not raise the ride height enough. Intriguingly, it also suggested that the weather may have played a factor in how things played out. A stronger wind intensity that was originally forecast along with the change in direction perhaps meant that the car was being forced down further in areas of the track that it had in practice, pushing the plank on the ground. The situation though at Austin was also made more complicated by the bumpy nature of the circuit, which was described by Verstappen as not being up to Formula 1 standards. Another potential factor would also be related to the tyres, as it may not be a coincidence that 2 cars that fell foul of the plank issues were also those that ran extended opening stints. We know that as the tyres wear, there's less tread left, which not only reduces grip, but means that the temperature is also able to escape. This can result in lower pressures as tyres get towards the end of their life, and that has the consequence of a lower ride height. In both Hamilton and Leclerc's case, they ran longer first stints on the medium tyre in order to create a strategic offset to Verstappen and Norris, with Leclerc opting to make a one-stop strategy work against his rivals on 2 stoppers. This could have opened the door for an extra plank wear in this period of the race, when the car was still quite heavy on fuel. All these above elements came together to push the Mercedes and the Ferrari outside of the tolerated window. As Mercedes trackside engineer director Andrew Chauvelin explained, unfortunately, it is one of the pitfalls of the sprint format, where we have a solitary hour of running before Parc Fermé. Without running at a full race fuel load in FP1, combined with a circuit as bumpy as this in parts of the track where the drivers have to put the car during the bumpy Grand Prix, have contributed to the higher than expected wear levels. We will go away from this weekend and learn from this though. It will be very interesting to see if at bumpy sprint venues, with Interlagos coming up, teams will now change their programs in FP1 to ensure that they get at least one run on heavy fuel to better understand their ride height implications for the Grand Prix race weekend. Certainly very interesting to see what happened to Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton this Grand Prix race weekend. Certainly wasn't what we were expecting. It was quite late after the Grand Prix. I think I'd already gone to bed, and then they announced the fact that Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton were eliminated from the Grand Prix. Yeah, big shock, but the rules are rules, as Toto Wolff has gone on and said, and unfortunately those 2 drivers were disqualified from the race. Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports, here for some breaking news. Huge concerns have been raised in the Andretti negotiations with Formula 1. For several weeks now, speculations have surrounded Andretti and General Motors and their entry into Formula 1. Having passed the necessary checks and requirements imposed by the FIA, talks have now begun with the American entrant and Formula 1 management. Generally speaking, Andretti has faced sustained opposition from the existing teams. For almost 2 years, team principals have questioned whether an 11th team is necessarily in Formula 1. Moreover, the issue of added value is often asked when discussing Andretti's bid. In a sport where politics is so pivotal, the environment towards the American group has been very hostile. There is no set deadline for when Formula 1 must reach a decision on whether to accept or to deny their application, adding further uncertainty to their process. Financial issues are also cited as a significant sticking point. On paper, Formula 1 is in the healthiest it has ever been financially. The budget cap has also seen the likes of Mercedes and Red Bull go from spending $400 million annually to around $150 million. As such, it is inaccurate to suggest that Andretti's entry would jeopardize any existing team. Unfortunately for the US outfit, this doesn't stop teams from complaining about prize money. The reduced slice of prize money teams will receive if Andretti joins is another area teams often cite as an issue. While the current teams have no formal say on what Formula 1 management's final decision will be, their resistance will likely be a key factor in swaying CEO Stefano Domenicali's final opinion on the matter. And critical to the negativity towards Andretti is the fear for some teams that adding an 11th squad to the grid could risk their own future. Williams team principal James Vowles made it clear at the recent Qatar Grand Prix that squads like his were still on the knife edge when it came to finances, so losing prize money and value would not be a good thing. My responsibility is to 900 employees within my company, he said. If you go look at Company's House, you can go look it up for Williams. We've submitted it now, and you can see that we're lossy. Very lossy. In fact, compare it to 21 to 22, you'll see that losses are in the tens of millions. Compare that to 2023, which you won't see, but I'll guarantee you that it is multiples above that. As Red Bull team boss Christian Horner told Sky Formula 1 recently, I think that when you look at how Audi has come into the sport, they've acquired an existing team and an existing franchise. Should it be different for the others? I think that's where Liberty and the FIA need to get together and come to us with a collective position. Because you cannot have one rule for one and another for others. Obviously, money makes the world go round, and that's what every team will be acutely sensitive of, and the franchise value being diluted. Suddenly you go from 10 to 11, so of course the stakeholders, the shareholders of each individual team, will have a concern about that. The key thing for Andretti is whether those concerns are enough to convince Formula 1 management not to give it the deal that it wants. But would Andretti's arrival and the subsequent reshuffling of the commercial rights income really have that much of an impact in making things worse? Especially if it stumps up the $200 million dilution fund payment first. Formula 1's exact prize money split is secret, with its details enshrined in the commercial element of the two Concord agreements. However, using information that is available in the public domain, including the published accounts of both teams and Formula 1 owners Liberty Media, it is possible to ascertain a pretty good idea of how the commercial pot is split up. The best estimation is that, according to the terms of the Concord Agreement, if we judge that the final payment pot is $1 billion, here is how the payments would shift with an 11th team being brought on the grid. If we had 10 teams on the grid with a total fund of $1 billion, the top team would get $140 million with 40%, second place would get 131, third place 122, fourth 113, fifth 104, sixth 95 million, 7th, 87 million, 8th, 78 million, 9th, 69 million, and 10th, $60 million with 6% of that prize pool. Should an 11th team arrive, then the figures would shift slightly, with everyone's percentage of the pot being reduced. This means that those who got a bigger slice of the pie will stand to lose the most. The projection for 11 teams based on $1 billion are as follows. For first place, they would then get 13.3% of that prize pool and get $133 million, down $7 million from $140 million, with only 10 teams on the grid. Second place would then receive $125 million, third 116, fourth 108, fifth 99, sixth 91, seventh 83, eighth 74, ninth 65, 10th 57, and 11th being $49 million. Comparing the two tables, it shows that the arrival of Andretti, if the prize pot does not increase, would trigger a $7 million loss for the Constructors' Champions. The team that finished 5th would lose $5 million, while the team that was placed 10th would go from $60 million to $57 million, a drop of $3 million per year. However, there have been some positive developments for Andretti. Despite the opposition among existing teams, it is ultimately the decision of Formula 1 to accept or deny them. In this sense, the above grievances are not necessarily detrimental to their aspirations. Additionally, there are legal implications of the decision Formula 1 takes. Simply put, Andretti has the option to take legal action if Formula 1 management do not accept their entry for 2025. Of course, this is not an ideal path for any party that is involved. Still, it gives the American team an ace up their sleeve. If the sport wants to avoid the public backlash and scrutiny that a legal case would involve, reaching some kind of compromise should be their priority. New information has emerged though that sheds some light on the dynamics at play between Formula 1 management and Andretti Motors. According to sources, Formula 1 has asked General Motors if they would like to partner with a team other than Andretti. This would be a direct snub from the Formula 1 management to the American team, underscoring their resistance to an 11th team joining the grid. If Formula 1 has indeed asked General Motors to join the field, but with another team, then it cannot be said that Andretti is not adding value to the grid. At this stage, the outcome of negotiations is uncertain, and it is entirely possible an agreement will be reached within the next few months. Andretti is operating under the assumption that they will be in Formula 1, as they have already built a car according to the 2023 speculations, and they are already testing it in their wind tunnel in Germany. Regrettably, however, it seems that Formula 1 is still very resistant to Andretti joining the field, and there is the potential for the saga to become more drawn out and grossly unpopular. Formula 1 must tread carefully though if they are to avoid another bad PR episode for the sport. Certainly very interesting to hear all of these key points that are the sticking points in Andretti's entry into Formula 1. Will they be granted that entry into the sport, or will there be these sticking points that hold it back from moving on to an agreement with Formula 1 management? We certainly hope that it does not go a legal route to get them onto the grid in 2025 or 2026, but if they do not get their bid accepted by Formula 1 management, that may be the only avenue that Andretti does have to get their team onto the grid in 2025 or 2026. Thank you very much for watching me. I've been Reece here on Forever Motorsports. Do be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to check out all of our other content on our channel for more Formula 1 news. That has been it for me here on Forever Motorsports. Cheers. Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports for this, a helmet review ahead of the Mexican Grand Prix, we have two drivers this race weekend who are bringing new helmets onto the track. That is Sergio Perez and Oliver Bearman. Oliver Bearman making his FP1 debut in Formula 1 this weekend with Haas. But to speak about the home driver first, Sergio Perez will start his home Grand Prix in Mexico with a specially designed helmet. The Red Bull Racing driver has had a helmet designed by a fan in a competition alongside Red Bull. Thousands of designs were sent in after Sergio Perez gave his fans the chance to have their say on how his helmet looked for the Mexican Grand Prix. The 33-year-old driver is racing in his own country and wants to make it a special moment. Out of the thousands of designs submitted, Perez finally chose the design by 22-year-old Mexican Carla Lozano. He went on and said, "When I saw Carla's design, I knew I had to have it on my helmet for Mexico. It is great that the team can connect with fans in the way that we do here and give them the opportunities like this." It was tricky making the decision because the entries were so strong and interesting. Perez let it be noted that Carla's art was the one that brought it all together and showed Mexico in such a perfect way. There are so many little details and the colors are amazing. I always have Mexico in La Cabeza, but this weekend I will be proudly showing it with this unique helmet. I don't think the pit lane has seen a helmet like this before, he added. Looking at Sergio Perez's helmet for this race weekend, it is really quite exciting. It's got all the really bright and colorful Mexican colors on there and all of the Mexican designs as well. Certainly ties into his home race and it's going to be very noticeable from the cockpit. Of course, perfect for the Mexican fans out there in force, I'm sure, at this Mexican Grand Prix. They're going to be able to see their driver coming from a mile away. But to look at the other driver currently running a helmet design for this race weekend is Oliver Bearman, who will be making his FP1 debut with Haas. He has released a new helmet for himself on Instagram. He says, "New colors for Mexico, so happy with how this came out. Hope you like it as much as I do." It is a pretty standard looking Haas designed helmet in black, white and fluorescent green with of course all of the Haas designs and Haas sponsors on there as well as the Ferrari Driver Academy logo, because that is who Oliver Bearman does drive for at the moment in Formula 2. He should be making his way into Formula 1 in the next couple of years. But really exciting to see all of these drivers running unique helmets for this upcoming Grand Prix race weekend. Not many drivers running new helmets for this race weekend. Hopefully we'll see a few more before the end of the season that we can do a review for you guys. But certainly really looking forward to seeing that helmet of Sergio Perez's out on track. It's going to be very, very bright and it's not going to be very hard to miss him out there. Do be sure to join us for all of our coverage for this Mexican Grand Prix race weekend, and thank you very much for watching this video. Do be sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. I've been Reece here on Forever Motorsports. Cheers.
Hello everybody, Stevie P here from Forever Sports, and I'm here to tell you about BOYLESPORTS, the official betting partner of Forever Sports. Across all of our channels, they are one of the leading betting companies in the world and have recently launched in South Africa with an amazing offering. You can get a 1,000 Rand welcome offer. For the rugby, they are giving you 25% payout boost up to 2,000 Rand on the Springboks winning the World Cup, as well as an extra 50 Rand bet when you stake 250 more on rugby during the Rugby World Cup. It is your one-stop betting shop. That is BOYLESPORTS. Come and join us in the community. Check the links in the description to sign up, get yourself an account, and make sure that you are winning big with BOYLESPORTS.
Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports for the Mexico Grand Prix preview. I'll be speaking a little bit today about the track characteristics, the weather forecast for this race weekend, as well as who should be competitive around this circuit. The second of the American triple header sees Formula One travel south, where the Mexican Grand Prix will be held in its capital city. The first noteworthy aspect of the Mexican track is its location, which is 2,200 meters above sea level, which makes this event uniquely demanding. Despite the two long straights, we're used to seeing cars with medium and high downforce settings to counteract the thin air. Furthermore, the engines are under great stress. In recent years, certain power units, such as Honda's, have excelled in these conditions though. Others, including Ferrari, have struggled, more at high turbo speeds. The track is very power limited. The needs for teams to use high load rear wings means their engines play a bigger role in pushing the cars on the main straights. In this regard, top speeds could be different from what we've seen this year. Formula One's traditional format returns this weekend, giving engineers 3 practice sessions to optimize their car setup for the qualifying and the race. McLaren has finally overtaken Aston Martin in the standings after a long run that began in Austria, while the fight for second place is getting closer and closer, despite the potential shown by the Mercedes W14. As we've seen often since the summer break, McLaren and Mercedes are the main contenders, directly behind Red Bull. Last week, the data analysis showed that Lewis Hamilton was even faster than Max Verstappen. The Mexican Grand Prix will provide answers on how much of Mercedes' performance came from its ground clearance. Mexico also offers a different test for Mercedes and its newly updated W14. According to what was gathered by Formula Uno, Red Bull and McLaren travelled with more conservative setups, precisely to limit wear on the plank. The MCL60 was the usual 2 or 3 tenths slower than the RB19 on race day though. This weekend, however, the intrinsic drag of the Papaya car will be less evident, and this could be an advantage to Norris and Piastri. Ferrari arrives from a less than brilliant weekend in terms of the SF23's performance. They were 4th fastest in Texas and Losail after an excellent spell of races. Barring any major twists in the remaining races, Fred Vasseur's team should maintain 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship. It will be more important though to be able to maximize their performance from their car this weekend. This is something that Ferrari has done well at certain points. Despite struggling to find the consistency of Red Bull, McLaren and Mercedes, the Mexican circuit is rear limited with many slow corners and important straights. All these characteristics suit the Maranello car, but the altitude will also play a role in the choice of setup. In terms of the track layout, 3 sectors divide the circuit quite well. Sector 1 includes the 2 long straights where efficiency with DRS will count. The second sector will start with a very low section and then speeds up in the snake. It is crucial for drivers to use the curbs to optimize lap time correctly. The last sector is the most technical one, with speeds reaching lows of 65 km an hour. Unlike 2022 when the intermediate range of compounds was brought, Pirelli chose to use the softer compounds this weekend of the C3, the C4 and the C5. The grip produced by the asphalt is significantly lower than average. Given that the roughness is among the lowest in the entire calendar, this should, according to Pirelli, favour greater diversity between strategies. Furthermore, on Friday, each driver will be given 2 sets of prototypes of a new C4 compound to use as they wish. Once the data has been analysed, we will decide whether to approve this version for use in 2024, said a Pirelli spokesperson. During the race, graining is a fairly frequent phenomenon on this track. This is partly because the tyres are subjected to greater slipping, as well as because they go over the curbs a lot, which of course cause greater graining. A hurricane heading towards Mexico creates some questions about the weather forecast for the Mexican Grand Prix. But the conditions for the race weekend look relatively pleasant. Dry, sunny and warm, but there is a little bit of wind that drivers may have to manage around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. There's some rain on the forecast overnight from Thursday to Friday, but it should dry up in time for the first free practice session, which starts at 12:30 track time, which it is then predicted to be 21 degrees Celsius. There's an 8% chance of rain during this period, and it is forecast to be partly cloudy. Looking towards the second practice session, it looks like the rain chance increases to about 12%, with the wind speed remaining fairly consistent. The same forecast is predicted on Saturday and Sunday. Perhaps it will be slightly warmer due to the increased amounts of sunshine, but the wind speed is predicted to remain consistent, around 8 to 9 miles an hour. So glad to hear that we shouldn't be interrupted by rain or that hurricane that is around the area in Mexico, but it should provide some great racing without the weather interfering at all this race weekend. This weekend also gives an opportunity for Mercedes and Aston Martin to look at their upgrades that they brought in Austin and get a better understanding of whether they are working to the best of their advantage or whether they can make slight changes for next season to be able to find more gains in terms of their setup. Hopefully this will allow them to get a little bit closer to the top teams of Red Bull and McLaren this race weekend. It should certainly be quite competitive, and we're hoping that we could get a four-way battle for P1 in qualifying on Saturday. We're certainly looking forward to it. Do be sure to join us for all of our coverage here on Forever Motorsports. Thank you very much for watching this video. Do be sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. I've been Reece here on Forever Motorsports. Cheers. Welcome to the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, home of the Mexico City Grand Prix. The inaugural race around the circuit was won by Jim Clark in 1963, while the most successful driver around the circuit has been Max Verstappen, who has gone on to take the winner's trophy home 4 times. The Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez is a high-speed street circuit spanning 4.3 kilometers. This tricky street circuit is made up of 17 corners and 3 DRS zones, 2 of them being consecutive DRS straights, which should provide great overtaking opportunities on Sunday. The current lap record around the circuit is 1 minute 18.7 seconds, which was set by Valtteri Bottas in 2018. At over 2,200 meters above sea level, the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez has an altitude of over 1,400 meters higher than the second highest Formula 1 track on the calendar, being the Interlagos circuit in Brazil. At higher altitudes, the air becomes thinner, and this reduction in air density makes setting up the cars for the Mexican Grand Prix one of the most unique challenges on the calendar. Dave Robson, the head of vehicle performance at Williams, went on to say that the low pressure means that despite running large rear wings, the drag and downforce of the cars is still low, as well as cooling the power unit and the brakes is also very difficult around the circuit. The turbo also needs to work very hard to keep the internal combustion engine running correctly. As part of a requirement for each team to run a rookie on 2 occasions during the season, Mercedes, Alpine, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo and Haas will all give track time to promising young talents this weekend. Danish Formula 2 driver Frederik Vesti will make his F1 debut for Mercedes and get a chance to show what he can do in modern machinery, taking over the seat from George Russell. At Alpine, Jack Doohan drove here a year ago and will do so again this time around, while Red Bull Junior driver Isa Kadja makes his first appearance for AlphaTauri. The Alfa Romeo reserve driver Teo Porcher will be getting a go in Valtteri Bottas' car around the Mexican circuit, and Ollie Behrman is also getting his first taste of an F1 weekend when he goes on to drive for Haas. This Formula 1 circuit provides some of the best viewing experiences for Formula 1 fans, especially in the Foroso grandstand, which is set up in an old baseball stadium, where you not only get to experience the thrill of watching an F1 car navigating a tricky technical sector, but you also get to experience the podium celebrations, which take place within view of the Mexican fans. Watch now as you get taken around a lap of the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Let us know in the comment section who you are supporting for the Mexico Grand Prix, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We sure hope to see you during our coverage of the Mexico Grand Prix. Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports for the qualifying session for the Mexico City Grand Prix. And certainly looking forward to this qualifying session, a lot to look forward to. We've got a very competitive top 5 and possibly even a more competitive top 10. We're looking at the moment from the back of FP3 earlier this evening. Verstappen topped that session. Alex Albon was very close behind him, as was Sergio Perez in third, George Russell then in fourth, Oscar Piastri in fifth, Valtteri Bottas also finding quite a lot of pace in his Alfa Romeo. We certainly expect them to find a lot more pace throughout this qualifying session here today. Who do you think is going to drop out of this first session? Do be sure to let me know in the comment section, as well as do be sure to let me know who you are supporting for the Mexican Grand Prix. That does take place tomorrow, of course. I'm sure I will see a lot of you guys joining me in the comment section shortly, as Percy says, hello, super excited to see this qualifying session. I'm going to get my headphones on and hear what is going on around the circuit at the moment, as we do still have a couple of minutes left to get going until the session does get underway. We still have 6 minutes on the dot now until that does get going. Do be sure to let me know who you're supporting, as I said already, and who you think will be the first 5 drivers to drop out of qualifying 1 around here in Mexico City. Just going over some stats about the circuit though, it is really quite high up in altitude, over 2,200 meters, in fact, in altitude. Over 1,500 meters taller or higher than the second highest Formula 1 track on the Formula 1 calendar, which is the Interlagos circuit in Brazil, of course, where we will be going out racing next weekend. Of course, one of the most famous tracks around the Formula 1 calendar, very, very highly regarded by the Formula 1 drivers and Formula 1 fans as alike. But just getting ready for this session, I see we have Tomato Head there in the comments, as the session is starting to grow up in viewers now. Do be sure to hit that like button before we do get going, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are not already. We only have 50 subs to get going until we do cross that 2,000 mark on this channel, so do be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell if you are not already subscribed to the channel. Just waiting to hear what is happening from the Springboks at the moment as well. Mark is downstairs, busy waiting for the end of that match. It is so close at the moment as we're watching the Formula 1 titles running now ahead of this Formula 1 qualifying session. Percy asking, do you think Max will break another record and get pole a second time? What can Max do this weekend? Certainly he's aiming for win number 15 of the season, which would take him to the all-time number of wins throughout a season in Formula 1. Very, very important for him. I'm sure he will be wanting to take those records, but what can he do now? We have the end of those titles. Looking over at the views of this track, beautiful out in Mexico today. It will be really hot at the 20th round of the 23 round season. We still have ahead of us Brazil, Las Vegas, and then of course the final race out in Abu Dhabi. That is certainly going to be quite an exciting race, as we're looking at some of the other statistics about this circuit. Just looking at the characteristics of this Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. 4.3 kilometers is the track distance. 48% of the lap is what you spend at full throttle. 114 is the track record by Daniel Ricciardo. Top speed is 356 kilometers an hour with 17 turns and an elevation of 2.6 meters around this circuit. Looking at the Pirelli tire allocation for this weekend, it is the C5, the C4, and the C3 compounds. So we expect the drivers to be relatively quick around the circuits. We saw the drivers getting into the 117s at the end of the FP3 session, but will they be able to get into the 116s in this session? Just looking over the circuit at the moment, looking a lot clearer than it was in that first session. It is quite a bit hotter. It is now 25 degrees Celsius, air temperature 46 degrees Celsius, track temperature, but the humidity is at least low. The wind speed is up a little bit from 3.5 kilometers an hour in the first session up to 4.3 kilometers an hour in this session, westerly facing, whereas it was northeasterly facing in that first session. Percy just saying, not just that, but at least my knowledge there has been a different person on pole in Mexico every year.
I don't necessarily know that stat, but I will hold you to that for now. We would expect Max Verstappen to be quite dominant around here. He is the most successful Formula 1 driver around this circuit with, I think it is 4 race wins so far. Could he make it 5 and make his dominance around the circuit even more present? We're watching the Mexican fans already geared on at the moment, getting ready for this qualifying session to get underway. Sergio Perez, the driver that they will all be rooting for this weekend, is in his car getting ready to go out on track now. We have just a few minutes left to get going. 1 minute and 36 seconds now until the clock and the timer goes green for the cars to get out onto circuit. What can Sergio Perez do, though, this race weekend? Cora just saying, I think the 117.7 lap record is going to be broken today. That lap record is a race lap record. The qualifying lap record is a 114, I think, 0.3 set by Daniel Ricciardo in, if I'm not mistaken, 2018. But we'll have to see what they are able to do. As Tina says that this will be Max's 16th win of the season. And as you say that, he comes onto the camera now, just hearing a few cheers downstairs, hoping that means good luck for the Springboks. But just waiting for the session to get underway now. 55 seconds left to go. Who will take the top of this timing board? We saw the likes of Alex Albon being really quite competitive in the practice sessions. Could he be one to watch throughout the remainder of this session? Also one to watch would be the likes of Daniel Ricciardo, who found some great amounts of time on the set of mediums. Will he be able to find some good lap time on a set of softs, though? We'll have to wait and see. His teammate Yuki Tsunoda was able to pip him at the end of that FP3 session, but maybe Daniel Ricciardo just needed a bit of a better run. Old Man Rue there saying it's going to be an interesting qualification session. It certainly will be. Tomato Head also just saying, hopefully we can get into the 115s in this session. It is a bit of a fast shout, but I don't think it is impossible with the current fastest time for this race weekend being a 117.8 from Max Verstappen in FP3. Watching Fernando Alonso, what can he do? He didn't necessarily have the greatest few sessions in free practice 1, 2, or 3 this race weekend. He is all the way down in 17th at the back of that session. The session is now live as I'm going to restart the timer as I think it is 50. Oh, this is going to be difficult for me. 23. I think it is 15 minutes for the first session. I will double check that, but we're running that for now, and I'll fix that if it is incorrect. Just fixing my countdown text, and then we will get underway. As we're seeing the Haas's now already leaving out onto circuit. It is 18 minutes of the session. I do apologize. I will fix that very shortly. Qualifying 1 ends in. It's a little bit more than that, but I will get that sorted in just a sec. So hopefully that is correct for you guys now. It should be, and it should be matching up with our timing boards alongside us. I think it is. Perfect. As we are watching now, the first few drivers making their way out onto track, we have Pierre Gasly, Kevin Magnussen out on circuit at the moment. But other than that, it is a little bit quiet out there. Robert Stellard just in the comment section saying, hi all, is the raccoon with us? I'm sure he will be joining us soon, as we have Lindiwe watching over after the last few seconds of the box. What is happening with the box at the moment, Lindiwe? I don't know if we've won or not. Please do be sure to let me know. Mark is downstairs just watching alongside with that. But just watching the first few drivers making their way out onto track. We still have the likes of Stroll, Alonso, Gasly and Magnussen, the only drivers out on circuit. But could we see a couple more coming out a little bit later? I think they're going to wait until this track evolves a little bit more. We do see this track getting quite, not modified, but it gets really quite evolved throughout the session. Thank you very much, PT, for noticing the timer there. I have reset it for you, and that is going. Just watching the first few drivers out on track. We don't have anyone on their first hot laps. Have we won, Lindiwe? Because you're saying Box scrambled their lives. Time 79.40, so close at the moment. I'm really hoping we do go on to win that. It is a really, really close game between the Springboks and the New Zealand team at the moment. Just watching Kevin Magnussen, he's starting his first hot lap. The car of Lance Stroll gets out the way for him. His first sector is a 27.8, relatively good for him in that first sector. Watching on though, as he comes on to finish up his lap now coming through the middle sector, he's still going really quite fast there with a 31.8 in that sector. What can he do now throughout throughout the remainder of his lap. Coming through the final corner now, getting past Lance Stroll there. Quite a lot of traffic. I'm sure that will be emerging out onto track at the moment. We still only got not even Hulkenberg. It's just the 4 drivers of Gasly, Magnussen, Stroll, and Alonso out on circuit at the moment. Still very quiet, but they are allowing themselves to at least get a clean lap in. And if there are any incidents throughout the session, they should at least have that banker lap in. Magnussen's first time is a 1:19.7. Nothing spectacular, but as I said, always helps to get that banker lap in. Pierre Gasly comes through the final few corners now. Where will he be able to get as he finishes up his lap? Coming through the final 2 corners, he comes across that baseball stadium sector. He comes across the line now. Where does he put himself? He goes up into second, only behind Kevin Magnussen with a 1:19.7. Not what we would have expected. As I hear big screams in the background from Mark, so I assume that would mean the Springboks have won the World Cup. Brilliant from them. But continuing with Pierre Gasly, Lance Stroll is on a hot lap, as is Fernando Alonso. Lance Stroll is currently holding himself out ahead of Alonso in terms of his sector times. Certainly quite interesting there, as Lindiwe confirms that South Africa are the world champions for the Rugby World Cup. Brilliant to the Bokke. Congratulations to them for sure, as we're seeing a lot of drivers now leaving the pits. Verstappen's on an outlap. Perez is on an outlap. Russell, Tsunoda, Norris is all on outlaps at the moment, as has Hamilton. He's also just left his pits now, with Lindiwe and Narol just all giving their support for the Springboks. Congrats to the Bokke. Very, very happy here. And we'll get a very, very excited Mark, I'm sure, joining us in commentary quite shortly. The track is getting very, very busy now, but we still do have about 6 or 7 drivers who have not made their way out onto circuit. 174 of you watching alongside with us at the moment. Do be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed to the channel already. We have just under 50 subs to get to 2,000 on this channel. Let's try and do that today when the Springboks have gone and taken the World Cup. Alonso now takes that top spot away from Kevin Magnussen with a 1:19.6. Still not where we would have expected them to be at the end of this session. We're hoping that they'll be able to pick up the time now. But Sergio Perez starts his first hot lap of the day. He's going relatively quick through that first sector, takes that first sector time with a 27.7. Stroll finishes up his lap. He only goes 4th fastest with a 1:20.0. Clearly losing time on his teammate Fernando Alonso. What can Sergio Perez do? I see purple sectors in the middle sector now. He is certainly picking up the pace through there. Just watching to see what he can do. Yuki Tsunoda matching some mini sectors there throughout the first and second sector, as George Russell certainly seems to be finding a bit of pace on Sergio Perez through that middle sector as well. Where's Verstappen though? He has taken away that first sector now from Sergio Perez. What will he be able to do in response to Sergio Perez in the middle sector? George Russell starting to fall back a little bit in that middle now. What can he do? Sergio Perez looking really neat and tidy as he comes through that middle sector. Watching his time, so through the final sector, Lance Stroll, I think, coming into the pits as Perez gets past him. He crosses the line. Where does Perez go? He does go fastest with a 1:18.5. Mark joins us in the commentary, and we have won the World Championship. I did hear all of the screaming there downstairs. Just continuing on though with Max Verstappen's lap now. He is coming through that final sector. Where will he be able to put his car? He's gone really quite quickly through the second sector, but his first sector time has been taken away by Lewis Hamilton. He comes across that final few corners now, waiting for him to cross the line. He does now cross the line. Where does he put himself? 1:18.099, half a second up on his teammate for now. Just keeping on watching those sector times though from everyone else. Lewis Hamilton really quite quick through that first sector. Are you a bit out of breath?
No, I'm shaking still. I'm shaking. Another 1-point victory in the rugby, which I hate, but we've won the World Cup, so
I told you it would be a soppy Mark if we did go on to win the World Cup. Watching what Hamilton is doing though, he finished up his lap, not able to match Max Verstappen's sector times throughout the second and third sector, but relatively close to the 2 Red Bulls. At least one Red Bull, Perez with a 1:18.6, Perez with a 1:18.5. Calm down.
Sorry.
Max Verstappen though with a 1:18.099. We're in the Formula 1 now.
No, I'm just trying to catch up. I'm just trying to catch up and just trying to see what's happening in the tables. Like, I'll be there in 20 seconds. Let me just go through what's happening and then I'll be there. Do apologize, but yes,
quite close now to 2,000 subs on the channel. Do be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're less than 40 subs away from that mark. Now let's get to that before the end of the session. Max Verstappen though still holding on to that top spot. Anyone else down the grid able to meet those sector times at the moment? Unfortunately not.
So, looking at this grid now, of course, I've joined late. I apologize about that. But yes, Max Verstappen in the low 118s already. We've still got 10-ish minutes left to go in this session. So, lots of time, plenty of time for all of those who are currently going on out laps. Albon, very keen to see what he can do in this session. He's now making his way out to start his first lap. So, we're going to be very interested to see what he can do.
Yes, very interested in seeing what they can do. Lando Norris was not able, unfortunately, to get the first... Well, his first run wasn't necessarily good enough. It was a 125.3. I think he might be on a better lap time now. Ricardo has set the fastest first sector, though. Brilliant from Daniel Ricciardo. Will he be able to match Max Verstappen, though, in that middle and final sector, where the car of Verstappen and Verstappen in all just finds dominance throughout those final two sectors? Ricciardo's doing relatively well, but not being able to match that of Verstappen. Bottas is taking a few mini sectors, though, through the middle and final sector now.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what Ricciardo can do for the remainder of his lap as he comes into Sector 3 at 30.4. It's a little bit slower than Verstappen, but on par with Perez as Bottas, as it says, does finish up his lap at 118.4 for Valtteri Bottas, who's had a really, really good weekend. So, still continuing to do really, really well in this session. Hopefully, he'll make it through to the final qualifying sessions. Ricciardo now finishes his lap. He moves into second now, 118.3.
Phenomenal from Daniel Ricciardo. In that AlphaTauri, of course, it does have a lot more upgrades on it, but we didn't expect it to be able to find pace that quickly out there. Watching the final sector for him, he was really on the limit there. We'd expect him to be able to maybe find some more pace, but Bottas has put himself up to third. That's also brilliant from Valtteri Bottas. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, very, very good from Valtteri Bottas. Just adding my name.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't take that off while you were off air.
Yeah, no problem at all. So, let's see what Albon
Cora
can do.
has asked us in the comment section, what is an outlap in Formula 1? So an outlap is when you leave the pits. Of course, it doesn't count as a times lap because you don't necessarily start and cross the start-finish line. So it counts as a outlap. And then once you cross the start-finish line after that, then it does count as your start lap. Just watching here why Daniel Ricciardo got so high up. He got a brilliant slipstream from his teammate, Yuki Tsunoda, in the sister AlphaTauri.
Yeah, that's exactly... It's very clever tactics as well to get that slipstream. It's exactly what you want. A Sargent has set the first sector as a purple. Second sector, much slower though, so it won't be that quick a time. It does finish up his lap there. Definitely messed up in the second and third sectors, a 120.4. But he did get the first sector as a purple.
That is really interesting to see. I'm still waiting for Albon to get a lap hooked up around the circuit. We know he has a lot more pace in him, but he hasn't been able to show us that just yet.
Well, he's got a 119.3, as I say, so hopefully he'll go around.
He's done a mid 117 before, so...
Yeah. As I say, we do expect him to be further up as Leclerc now moves into third. Notably, he's on medium tyres. It's very interesting to see that there's a bit of a difference in terms of which tyres some drivers have decided to go out on. So some drivers opting for mediums versus the softs, and Leclerc on the mediums, I think he backs the Ferrari to be quick enough on the mediums so they can save those softs for the second and third sessions.
It's certainly a good shout for sure. Of course, they've come out now when the track is more evolved, so they can get that lap time in on the set of mediums. They may be running really, really low fuel levels to be able to get that lap time over the line, but they're safe at the moment. Pureblood in the comment section saying Merck and McLaren are running mediums, maybe trying to save the softs for Q2 and Q3. Yeah, just going on what we just said there.
Yeah, that's exactly that. So right now there's a little bit of concern for both Williams and McLaren because they're right down there. Norris is yet to set a time, of course, but Piastri has on a set of mediums come back to the pits. I think they might well not risk it. They'll come out in softs to make sure they get into Q2 because at this point McLaren are looking a little bit worse for wear. They stroll down in 16th as well. He was further up, but he's been moving down as all these new times are getting pushed. And Alonso's up in 8th. Very good for him.
Tomato Head giving his bold prediction for the session, saying Mercedes are going to get knocked out. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens throughout the session.
Yeah, indeed. So I just want to actually just transition quickly. Otherwise, name would not be there. Yes, there we go. So yeah, let's see. Norris now sets the time. Apparently, well, no, that's just his outlap. So let's see now.
His outlap 125. It's been on the board for quite some time now. He is in the pits at the moment, Mark, as we're watching his race engineer holding up his hand, saying, "Don't set the car just yet." Trying to find him an optimum place on the circuit.
I think they're going to wait for Gasly and Ocon to basically make their way either in or out. They're going to try and see and then release them. So seems to be being released, although it's a bit of a wait here. I think because there's a bit of traffic, maybe other people have decided to go out ahead of them. Indeed, they have. As we get a few video calls coming in, I think that's all the Springbok fans Very happy, obviously, about the results. Just noting that Sargent's time was deleted for track limits.
First time deleted today for track limits. I thought this was going to become an issue. It hasn't just yet. But, of course, this lap time from Logan Sargent was deleted for track limits. Carlos Sainz on the radio saying, yes, traffic with Hamilton in the last sector. That was a bit too much from him. Just asking maybe for a bit more looks from the FIA.
I don't think it was that bad from Hamilton. He made an effort to try and get out the way. He sped up the car to get out the way. I don't think there's much argument there. I think Carlos Sainz does very easily get put off by traffic ahead of him.
Norris and Piastri out on softs now on an outlap.
Yeah, I was about to say that'd be more like it from McLaren. They'll go on the softs, make sure they get into the next session. They can't risk it. Ferrari, though, seem to be risking it. Leclerc on those mediums. Do you think he'll go out on another set of softs, or do you think there'll be mediums? Maybe they'll just do one soft run.
I think Leclerc should be all right. It might be a bit tight near the end of the session, but I think you have to bank it and not want to ruin an extra set of tyres. You have to kind of believe in yourself and believe in your strategists. I know it's Ferrari strategists, but I think they have made the right call here to save a set of softs.
Yeah, exactly that. So, out laps for Albon, Piastri and Norris. They're about to get going with their laps as Piastri comes around the final corner to start his hot lap to hopefully get him out of the session. We've just got about 4 minutes left remaining in this session, so not a lot of time for all those drivers to get out. So, a lot of people still in the pits. They'll probably be getting released right now.
Yes, they should be getting released relatively shortly. Albon is on his outlap.
Yeah, there you go. Everybody now making their way out as we see all the times and speeds for all those drivers. They're all making their way out. Just watching Alex Albon.
Wait for one person to jump, and then they all jump after that. Albon going a little bit wide over those curbs, taking a bit of a ride. You end up surfing over there. Your skid plank just ends up raising too high. Sometimes your tires can lift off the ground, and you're a bit of a passenger until you exit it. As Percy says there in the comment section, oh no for Sargent. 266 of you watching alongside with us in the stream at the moment though. Do be sure to hit the like button. Do be sure to as well check out all of our channel partners down in the description of the video. We've got our channel partners, BitDefender, the global leader in cybersecurity. For all of your cybersecurity needs, do be sure to go and check out BitDefender in the channel description, as well as our other channel partner, BOYLESPORTS, for all of your betting needs. If you want to put your money where your mouth is, do be sure to go and check the link in the description for BOYLESPORTS.
Yes, indeed. Now, watching now Piastri on his fast lap here on a set of softs. He's got a purple sector in Sector 2. Sector 1 was quite quick as well. Right on par with pretty much Verstappen's time. So we could be looking at the fastest time in this. Oh, no, he goes second. Only just. And 1:18.2.
Very close, though. Much better time for Oscar Piastri. This is what we expected from the McLarens. But I think with the higher rubbered up track, we would have expected them to be even quicker. Hamilton saying there's so many people out there, are we okay time wise? Being told by by his engineer, yes we should be, but it is going to be close. As you say there, Piastri goes up into second with a 1:18.2. You did note that, but it is a big traffic jam
Norris,
at the end of the pit lane.
My word, huge traffic jam in that pit lane there. But Norris went round rather terribly, messed up his final sector, so he's going to have to do another outlap and make sure he gets around in time, because that's not going to be ideal for him. So all eyes on Norris. He could be in trouble here in this session as he messed up his lap there. He's definitely going on a cool down, and he's going to try and get going for another lap here. He cannot afford to make another mistake here, otherwise he's out of this session.
Yes, he cannot afford to make a mistake. In a car that's really competitive, and your teammates are up in P2, you need to get a clean lap in now. We do see the likes of Bottas is on a set of hards, Mark.
Hey?
So is Zhou Guanyu. They're on old sets of hards.
The Alfa Romeos quickly... or maybe that must be a mistake. That cannot be true.
Just watching this moment from Lando Norris as he comes through the middle sector where he lost all of that lap time. He had a massive lock of oversteer there as he came through. I think just because of the fact that he was taking a bit too much curb. Looks a bit neater through the exit, but he had lost that time there and decided to abandon his lap after that. Is this Stroll or Alonso now starting their hot lap?
This is Lance Stroll, who's of course currently in the elimination zone. Just confirming for you, those tires that are not hards, yeah.
Albon saying, guys, these tires are completely gone. It's a completely different car.
That's a bit of a struggle there for Albon.
He's
ninth.
P9, but we can see that these times start to topple really quickly once this track evolves. So he could be in that relegation zone near the end.
Interestingly enough, Ricciardo does not seem to have come out, so he's backing himself to make himself a presence in the second qualifying session. So he's not come out of the pits. He's the only driver not to do so. Piastri makes his way back into the pits. He backs his time to stay. Verstappen has made his way out. And stewards have noted a pit exit incident involving car 1. Verstappen will be investigated after the session for impeding.
Yes, just looking at Stroll currently out on circuit. Also watching some of our fellow pundits on the Forever Sports channel going absolutely berserk over the Boca win. But nothing improving for Lance Stroll in his first sector, as we have a yellow flag at the moment
Oh
on
dear,
the track.
yellow flag. I think that's just for this,
Gasly.
I think that's just for the pace, maybe right at the end of the third sector, of course, gearing up to start.
It's in sector 1, Mark.
Sector 1, maybe that's just somebody spun. Maybe
That's
Alonso.
It's Alonso.
Alonso's got problems. We don't know
Waiting
what's
to see. He's
green
completely
flag
stopped
now,
up.
green
Okay,
flag,
good.
green flag. But that's going to affect a lot of people's laps, as it was a yellow during that sector. So who are those drivers that are in trouble? Norris could be in huge trouble here. Let's follow
Norris
through.
isn't improving on his lap times at all. That's him out of the session. You
Oh
would
my
expect.
word, 19th.
Big name. Lando Norris out in 19. What a shocker for this qualifying 1 session.
My word, that's a complete mess up there for Lando Norris and for McLaren. So we see now that the session is over. The green track is green, but I think Fernando Alonso, unfortunately, having done that, has now resulted in, unfortunately, he's out. It's very, very upsetting there for Fernando Alonso. Well, not Fernando Alonso, but for Lando Norris as a result of Fernando Alonso.
Just watching what happened to Fernando Alonso. He comes through turn 1, turn 2, relatively neatly, coming out of the exit of turn 3. Maybe just takes a little bit too much entry curb and then spins on the exit, unfortunately. And that is the end of his qualifying lap, as well as a bunch of other drivers behind him's qualifying laps as well. He at least makes it into quali 2, but unfortunately, not great for his first session.
No, not great at all for him. So that's very, very disappointing for Lando Norris, who's now been kicked out as a result of that. So it's just confirming there's 5 drivers that have now been kicked out. Norris, Sargent, Stroll, Magnussen, and Ocon all out.
Just looking at the moment, I think the FIA are going to be looking into these drivers that held their cars at the end of the pit lane just to back up the rest of the grid, as pit lane incident involving car 63 of Russell will be investigated after the session for impeding. That was, as I just said, for when he was waiting at the end of the pit lane and just holding everyone else up, trying to find himself a little bit of a gap. I think Max Verstappen is also being investigated for that exact same thing at the moment.
So I think Max Verstappen was the first driver to make a move out of the pits, and he was the first one to hold everybody up. Then after that, some more people holding people up. So, yeah.
Just currently watching with Logan Sargent, who's on the radio just chatting, I think, about the fact that he's dropped out. Just because he was talking a little bit about difficulty with traffic, which is why I think he was unable to get in a good enough lap time. Lando Norris moves up into P19 as a result of Logan Sargent's lap time being deleted.
Well, he was already 19th. I think that was the big thing. Norris was 19th already. So, but it's still a terrible, terrible start from McLaren. Lance Stroll, again, also. Eyes have been on him all season. Everybody's already called for him to exit, of course, Formula 1. And he's down in 18th. So,
in a relatively competitive car.
Yeah. And Alonso's up there in 10th. Of course, he did have a spin there.
Norris not looking happy at all in the McLaren pit lane. Unfortunately, it was his fault, Mark.
You have to put a banker lap. You have to put a banker lap in.
He lost out on the opportunity to get a clean banker lap in. And that resulted in him dropping out of this qualifying 1 session. Major shocker to have lost Norris in that first session here today.
Yeah, that's exactly that. So Q2 is on the way here. Who are the 5 that you reckon are going to be lost in Q2?
Well, at the moment it is looking like, well, you take the timing board away from me for a second, but Zhou Guanyu is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Zhou Guanyu was safe, so I expect Zhou, Hulkenberg, Gasly, Russell possibly, and Tsunoda maybe out in that next session. Almost 300 of you guys watching alongside with us. Do be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We are so close to 2,000 subs on this channel at the moment. We're really hoping to get past that this race weekend. Do be sure to hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comment section what you thought of that qualifying 1 session. Bit of a shocker there at the end to have lost Lando Norris from there. Unfortunately not being able to get a banker lap in, and that is his race, or his day over.
Oh, and his race, really.
Yeah.
As we start to put up a new poll here, guys. Of course, Q2 is about to get underway. So go and let us know in the poll there. Who will top Q2? Verstappen, Piastri, Ricciardo, or other? Of course, Ricciardo and Piastri up there as options because they did finish in the top 3 in Q1. So let us go no. Let us go and no in the comments.
Let us know in the comment section
who
you are voting for in this session. Just looking over at the grandstands, it is boiling out there on circuit. but these
Waiting,
Mexican
yeah.
fans are really quite excited. Turn it up again for you there.
Yeah,
if
that's what
you-
I'll say.
if you-
It's very, very hot. I think that's still just residue from the adrenaline of the previous sporting fixture I just watched. So yeah, just very, very hot right now. Just watching a replay here of Logan Sargent just lose quite a bit of time, and maybe with that traffic as well. Traffic not really getting in the way there, so I don't think that's too much of a complaint to be made for Logan Sargent.
I think what Max was doing here was the other drivers were going really slow out of the pit lane, so he decided I may as well wait until they exit the pit lane and then I can continue, as he doesn't actually ever fully stop, as they have paused the video now, but he keeps just crawling the entire time.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So Q2 is about to get going, and I think Q2 is actually just got going, perhaps? No, it's still waiting. Yeah.
Replays of those incidents from the rest of the grid. 15 minutes on the clock, waiting for the session to get live. Mark is going to wait. It has now just gone live. Mark's going to start the timer as it does now get going. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So our timer is now going. So we will have, it's going, but I don't think it should be going.
No,
yet.
they're holding up people yet
Yeah.
again.
So it's not actually going yet. So this is going. Pause that quickly. Wrong button. There we go. Start, stop, reset. So we're getting ready to
They're
start
watching
again.
replays of all the drivers moving through. When George Russell was doing that and holding people up, so they're replaying that, and we keep thinking it's the live shots. But we should get the session going live relatively shortly. Yes, Sergio Perez sitting in the car at the moment. He has not been able to match the likes of Max Verstappen, the Ferraris. Daniel Ricciardo in the AlphaTauri is not able to be matched by Sergio Perez. What should he be able to do throughout the rest of the session?
Well, I'm very keen to see what Ricciardo can do. Of course, the last time he got pole in Formula 1 was at the Mexican circuit in 2018. So eyes are on him to see if he can continue that. He clearly likes his track. He's doing very well in that AlphaTauri. It's a much worse car, of course, than what he was in 2018. But, you know, he's seemingly doing well. He did very well in the practice sessions as well. So hopefully he can do something, make it into Q3.
Yes, certainly we do hope he can get into Q3 and show us what he's made of, and possibly even out-qualify his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who we're currently looking at. And he's being investigated for an incident with Logan Sargent for overtaking under yellow flags. That is a really serious penalty in Formula 1, so they will be looking into that quite strictly, I'm sure, as we watch Logan Sargent making his way to the FIA weighing docks as he's waiting for the Red Bulls to make their way out of the pits first.
Yeah, so just looking at some of the comments just before I just go and clear something in my throat. Norris did it to himself. Indeed, we did pretty much say, he said you have to put a banker lap in. If you don't put a banker lap in, that's what happens, unfortunately. It's the risk you take for going out too late. And Percy's saying, I got my mother to watch FP3 with me, and her favorite is Piastri, so I'm hoping he won't be a disappointment to her later. Well, hopefully your mother's quite correct. He's up there in third after that first session. Let's see what he can do in Q2 as it is underway, and Sergio Perez leads us out.
Incidents involving car 63, Lando Norris, Zhou Guanyu have been noted for failing to follow the minimum mandated lap time around the circuit. So, of course, they give you a minimum lap time around the circuit so that you don't hold up too many other cars, and they have all exceeded that lap time. I don't know what the penalty could be for that. It could just be a reprimand, but we'll have to wait and see what the FIA do decide to give for those infringements. Just looking at a replay from Logan Sargent coming into turn 1, then turn 2. What did he do here? Turn 3. Oh, he just comes really close to that car of Fernando Alonso and then does go and overtake Yuki Tsunoda under yellow flags. That will be why he will be getting investigated. Then Lewis Hamilton overtakes, I think, one of the Red Bulls there coming into Sector 1 as well, where there are yellow flags. So stewards also noting Lewis Hamilton is under investigation for failing to slow down under the yellow flags, because we can see there, the yellow flag is clearly being shown and he is continuing to push on his lap there. So still a lot to be checked out before the end of the session. But we're watching a few drivers making their way out on their outlaps. Sergio Perez is starting, though, his first hot lap of Quali 2. What can he do throughout the rest of the session? As well as Max Verstappen starts his first Quali session. Incidents involving car 63, Russell, Norris, Zhou will be investigated after the session for failing to follow the race director's instructions for a maximum delta time. So that will be investigated after the session. Max Verstappen fastest in the first sector now, taking that away from Sergio Perez. 27.4 is that first sector time for himself. Sergio Perez did a 27.5, I think it was there. Or 27.664 rather. I do apologize. He goes through the middle sector with a 30.204. Max Verstappen hot on his heels though. What will Verstappen be able to do to counteract that second sector from Sergio Perez? Perez still going faster yet in the third sector. But Max Verstappen, as I said, really flying out behind him. Perez finishes up his lap time now with a 118.1. Max Verstappen coming through the final few corners now through the stadium sector. Where will he put himself after this lap time? He comes around the final corner, crosses the line. Where does he go? He goes fastest with a 117.625.
Yeah, on the 117s, we should perhaps see the 116s maybe in Q3. I think low 117s could be on the cards in this one.
Difficult because of the fact that the track is a little bit hotter in this session.
Yeah, well, we might see some things from Max Verstappen pulling off some unbelievable things.
Russell goes up into... Well, sorry, Russell's
still going, yeah. Russell finishes up his lap. Now, where does he move?
No, he's starting a hot lap rather.
Yeah,
that's why his name has jumped to the top of the timing boards. So, the two Red Bulls have finished up their first hot laps. We're waiting for the rest of the grid now to start their hot laps.
So, Mariana just saying in the comments here, I wish my family would love the same drivers. Unfortunately, my mother is a McLaren fan, my father is a Mercedes fan, and I'm a Ferrari fan, so it's quite difficult to agree on anything. Well, funny enough, in Formula 1, it usually isn't as difficult, even if you do support different teams, because generally you do recognize which drivers are best and which ones might not be as good because you support a team as well as drivers. I think it is slightly more separate in Formula 1 than it is in other sports, for example.
Daniel Ricciardo is currently going through the first sector.
With a couple of purple minis.
With a couple of purple minis, yes. As Oscar Piastri is also now starting his first hot lap of this Q2 session. I think we're going to get a few upsets here, possibly getting another big name dropped out of the session.
Well, who do you reckon?
George Russell.
George Russell. I also would back a Merc. I think a Merc might well fall here. George Russell's times right now, let's see what they're doing. A 27.7. That's still a bit slower than Daniel Ricciardo. So, yeah, it is a little bit of a scary thing. The fact that Daniel Ricciardo seems to be going on quicker than half of the grid. As he now finishes up, no, that's Russell rather, finishing up a lap. A 118.3. It's not going to be quick enough, I don't think.
I mean, it's a big gap to Max Verstappen with that 117.6. So just waiting for Daniel Ricciardo to cross the line. Where will he put himself now? He comes across that final corner there. He crosses the line now. He moves himself up into second with a 118.0 ahead of Sergio Perez.
I mean, absolutely brilliant from Ricciardo there. He moves into second, ahead of Perez, ahead of Russell, and ahead of Hamilton, who've all, of course, completed their fast laps here. So, Ricciardo's our second best driver on the grid right now. He's loving life.
Yes, he's certainly loving life. Superman just saying the record is currently 117.7. I think that is a race lap record, though. The track lap record is at 114, set by Daniel Ricciardo in the older generation of cars. We're seeing a couple drivers taking gambles, though. Again, we're seeing the two Alfa Romeos out on a set of hards.
Yeah, the Australian's doing quite well right now, as we do see Piastri moves into second. There you go, a 117.8. Brilliant lap for him.
To match Max Verstappen a little bit closer. But we would expect some of those other teams to be able to get a little bit higher. As Norel Porchito says, impressive for Daniel Ricciardo. As Old Man Roo said, go Aussies, as we currently have the second and third drivers, both from Australia.
Yeah, I mean, the Australians are doing absolutely fantastically so far in this race weekend. Piastri's been doing very well. Ricciardo's been raising eyebrows, and so has Valtteri Bottas, who's finishing up a lap now. So let's see what he can do.
Finish up their laps.
Bottas
in 8th and 9th.
So,
Valtteri Bottas
look at this.
on a set of hards.
No, it's on softs. It's just incorrect on the time board.
Okay,
it is, yeah, no ways. But a 118.2 for Valtteri Bottas, right on the tail of Sergio Perez. He's been doing fantastically all weekend as well. And continuing that form, Valtteri Bottas and Ricciardo are standout drivers so far this weekend. And putting themselves in the top 5 in Q2 right now, with 8.5 minutes left to go.
Yes, really quite exciting throughout this battle in qualifying two. Alex Albon fighting with the steering wheel as he comes through the exit of the middle sector, approaching the final sector. Now he crosses that sector line. Where will he put himself now? He finishes up that lap. Not good enough. Only still down in 11th.
Yeah, I think he's messed up a couple of sectors there. Just noting his middle sector a little slow there. That's the big thing. His middle sector quite slow, 30.5 versus what should be almost 29s. So yeah, Alex Albon lost time in that middle sector, and as a result, he's all the way down in 11th. He's still in that relegation zone in that Williams.
Verstappen, Ricciardo, Perez, Russell, Hamilton, Alonso, and Tsunoda are all in the pits at the moment. Tsunoda has still yet to set a time at the moment. Will he come out relatively soon? Maybe when there's a bit of a lull in activity out on circuit. Maybe that is what the AlphaTauri team is waiting for. Or maybe they're just going to wait for him to go out when everyone else goes on their final runs. Albon saying there's no way there's damage or something on his car. Or says there's no way, maybe there is damage or something on his car. Just the inflection, I got a little bit wrong on his quote there. As Charles Leclerc comes through the final sector now, it looks like he's on a warm down lap or possibly coming into the pits, Mark.
Yeah, I think he might well be coming to the pits. Yeah, so weird from Carlos.
No, he's finished.
That was my time, Leclerc.
Anything special.
Yeah, nothing special. He's definitely going to have to get out there. Fernando Alonso's getting ready to go out. He's starting his having said that,
that's coming into the pits.
Fernando Alonso, but he has not put. Oh, he has to put a time. What am I saying? I do apologize. Yes, his time was put on the board. It's just very, very slow. Yuki Tsunoda though has got no time currently in the pits. That's the one I'm looking at.
Alex Albon still out on circuit at the moment with Zhou Guanyu, and that's it. Just 2 drivers out on circuit. Will he come into the pits though? Now, as he comes through the final few corners, I do expect he will come into the pits now, as I think everyone has made their way into the pits and are going to go and put on a new set of tyres before we go out for our final runs in qualifying 2.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely brilliant. Still 6.5 minutes left to go, and we've got an Aussie and an Aussie in second and third, Piastri and Ricciardo. I mean, cannot believe that Ricciardo's right up there.
Yes, certainly cannot believe that Daniel Ricciardo is beating out the Red Bull team in an AlphaTauri. That is phenomenal from him at the moment.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if he got the slipstream from his teammate yet again on that final run.
Yeah. So let's see what happens in the last 5 or so minutes here as everybody's in the pits. They're going to make their way out now. Yuki Tsunoda getting his things taken off. The engineers there all around the car getting ready to send him out for his first times lapped. Of course, he's yet to set a time in this session. Currently down in 15th. His teammate Ricciardo's up in 3rd. So hopefully Yuki Tsunoda can improve quite dramatically. Clearly the car's got enough pace to be near the top. Verstappen, though, still leads this with a 117.6, Piastri a 117.8, and everybody else in the 118s, and those in the relegation zone with the 119s.
Yes, those drivers currently in the relegation zone, as you say, is Yuki Tsunoda, Alonso, Gasly, Hülkenberg, and Albon. We would expect Albon to be able to find a bit more time. He seems to be struggling in this session, in these qualifying sessions, all throughout, possibly because of the fact that he might have some damage. Watching Max Verstappen, though, on this lap, he just makes his car go around the circuit so perfectly, getting those curbs at the optimum points, not hitting them too much, not upsetting the car. He just rarely is one with that machine.
Yeah, brilliant. He's there waiting in the pits. I'm not sure he's going to need to make his way out, actually. I think he should be very safe in the 117s. The 118s are looking relatively competitive, although Ricciardo's in the 118s, very low 118s, so maybe Verstappen decides to go out just to have a look-see, but I don't think he'll need to. I think that time is definitely going to be safe enough to get into Q3.
Yes, his time should be safe enough to get into Q3. I don't think anyone's going to be able to match it, but we will have to just wait and see what happens. Hopefully we will get some other drivers being able to get a little bit higher up. Watching at the moment with Valtteri Bottas, he finished up in 5th on his last run, 0.9 seconds up on the knockout time. So he should be relatively safe, but we do expect this lap and this track to evolve quite quickly now in these next few minutes once drivers get out onto the circuit. We're seeing them getting ready to remove those blankets from the Alfa Romeo car. Who will be the first to jump out onto track though? We're watching the AlphaTauris. We're watching the Alfa Romeos. Who else will be the first to jump? We're seeing the AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda jumping with a whole bunch of other cars.
He's hit something in the pit lane there. He's just hit something as he came out. I think there might be a replay of that as we see a very young fan with a, oh my word, look at the traffic in the pit lane. It's absolutely ridiculous, everybody trying to get out into the track. So, yeah, I think there will be some more investigations in terms of how they exit the pits here. Really, really, really interesting here as to how everyone's exited. And it's really stupid. Just get out. I think there needs to be a change with these pit lanes, especially at least during qualifying, because we see this in so many Grand Prix where people hold each other up. And there needs to be a minimum speed, I think. That's what you need to have. There needs to be a minimum speed exiting the pits.
Well, that's why they've got a minimum lap time that they have to do. That's normally able to stop them from being able to...
But it doesn't include
just
coming out of the pits.
He hits a jack, Mark. Yuki Tsunoda hits one of the jacks for McLaren there. They left it in the way, and Yuki Tsunoda hit it on his way out. We're watching Pierre Gasly backing up the rest of the grid.
He's not really. Oh no, there's a. No, it was
No, that's
actually an
not
Alfa Romeo.
waiting there. As Albon comes onto the radio saying it's another mess leaving the pit lane again.
Well, as I say, what you were saying earlier about with regards to the minimum lap time, I don't think it includes coming out of the pit
it
does
it does include your entire outlap.
Well, that's a problem then. So,
As soon as you cross the pit lane line, then it starts timing your outlap.
oh, well, nonetheless, very interesting to note that, of course. So we've got 2.5 minutes left. Actually, less than that. 2 minutes left, basically. Max Verstappen doesn't look like he's leaving his car. He's chilling. He's relaxed. He knows he's into the next session. He is very much into the next session.
Piastri's on an outlap. Ricardo's on an outlap.
Everybody
Perez
else
is on an outlap, and everyone else is.
Except Hulkenberg, it
Except
seems.
for
No,
Hulkenberg.
he is there. He was just
No, he is
delayed.
there,
He was
yeah.
right at the back there. So everybody, bar Max Verstappen, has made their way out onto the track to go and do one final lap. Hopefully they'll all be able to start it. And let's see what will happen. Of course, the big driver names currently at risk. Alonso down there. Possibly the Ferraris, possibly the Mercedes. Daniel Ricciardo still up there in third. Absolutely brilliant from him. As Sainz now starts a hot lap for himself.
This could be a big lap from Carlos Sainz and the two Ferraris. They are relatively close to that elimination zone. You don't really feel that they've deserved to get too close to the top this weekend. They haven't shown great pace. We want them to get high up, but they just don't seem to have it this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we were really expecting more from them. Of course, their engines they couldn't change for this week. They decided not to change. Well, I'm saying the drivers, of course, couldn't get a changed engine for themselves. The teams decided not to change those engines, so they are having to just nurse those a little bit.
0.1 down in the first sector, and that just shows the amount of lap time they're losing versus the Red Bull engine there in sector 1.
Yeah, so there are a couple of purple mini sectors though going round 4. I think it is Leclerc. Yeah, it is Leclerc. It's got a few mini sectors there that are purple. He's got a 30.0, so he's still right on with Max Verstappen's time. He could be in for a 117, but it'll be right on the edge there. I think, no, Sainz is very slow, though. So Sainz has made a big step up. I think Sainz is in huge danger here, ladies and gentlemen. He's in 8th place right now. He's pretty much not going to beat his previous lap time. And
Alonso does another lap. He only gets himself up to 12th mark.
Yeah, there you go. Russell's got a purple sector in sector 2. Ricardo gets a purple sector in sector 3. He improves him on his time. A 117.7 for Ricardo. Leclerc moves into 4th, a 117.9. Bottas still is 118.0.
Where will
Sainz
Russell
did not
go,
improve.
though? Russell coming around the final 2 corners now. He approaches the finish line. He goes second fastest with a 117.673, just up, or just down rather, on Max Verstappen's time. So close there between the top 3 right now. Split by just 0.081 seconds.
I'm just looking at Sainz, who might well be caned out of the session, but I think he might just be safe because he's currently still 9th. Alonso's finished. I don't think Albon's going to improve upon his times. Let's see. Albon is the one that
Hamilton takes the fastest lap time overall
My
in the second
word.
with a 117.5. The Mercedes finally showing their true hand as they have set the fastest lap of the weekend.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Perez is also in the pits, notably. I just wanted to go and note that. He's been in the pits for a while, so he didn't come out with Max Verstappen. Albon and Alonso are still in this. I don't know if Alonso started another lap. I think he might well have started another lap. Let's see how quickly is he going around. Is he going around quick enough? I don't think he's going around quickly. No, he's going to come back into the pits. The session is, of course, over. And Albon moves into 9th. He moves Sainz down into 10th. So Albon is safe. And so is Sainz by the skin of his teeth.
He will certainly be hyperventilating there a little bit like what Mark was when he came in from watching the box win. But Carlos Sainz, as Mark says, just gets in by the skin of his teeth into Q3. But the big names out of this session, unfortunately, are Yuki Tsunoda, Fernando Alonso being the bigger name, Nico Hulkenberg, Pierre Gasly, and Zhou Guanyu. Carlos Sainz getting really close to that relegation zone.
And I think a
big
big
disappointment for Yuki Tsunoda.
I was about to say, I think a big talking point is the fact that Yuki Tsunoda could not get a time on the board in that session. His teammate Ricciardo's up in 4th.
I don't know why he wasn't able to get time set in that session. Relatively interesting there. But that Q2 session is now over. Do be sure to hit the like button on the stream if you haven't already. We are getting very close to 2,000 subs on this channel, so do be sure to hit that sub button as well. And go and check out our channel partners, BITDEFENDER, for all of your cybersecurity needs. Go and check out the global leader in cyber security, BITDEFENDER. And if you want to put your money where your mouth is, do be sure to go and check out the description for our channel partner, BOYLESPORTS, where you can go and put your money where your mouth is and put bets down for this race weekend. Zhou Guanyu quite upset at the fact that he was dropped out from that Quali 2 session.
Well, only just, of course, in 11th. That is the very last position that does get eliminated. So he was just knocked out, literally by 0.05, more or less. That's what the time was from him to Carlos Sainz ahead of him. So really disappointing. I think he might be disappointed because maybe traffic made a little bit of an issue on him as well. Fernando Alonso, he's very upset to have been knocked out there. He's not looking very happy in the pit lane there. I think Aston Martin have completely lost it in the end of the season.
It should have been a relatively good day out for him this weekend with that upgraded Aston Martin, but they haven't been able to find the pace that we were hoping they would be able to find with those upgrades. Disappointing, but kind of expected off the back of last weekend out in Austin.
No, I mean, it's exactly that. So we do have a cat that's just meowing outside. It's our resident Formula One mascot. You know, his name is Sebastian.
Is it Sebastian or is it Felix?
It is Sebastian who's on the outside here, desperately wanted to come inside. Of course, I think aptly named after a particular very, very famous F1 driver. Of course, you can go and tell us who that is in the comments. But he's a little bit of our mascot, more or less. I think he's going to come and appear and stream a little bit. Reece has brought him in. He's just being very impatient outside. So this is our resident Formula One mascot, if anybody of you were interested. This is Sebastian, aptly named after Sebastian Vettel, of course. And yeah, he's a very, very fluffy little cat there. And I'm sure he's rooting for these Red Bull drivers, of course. No, he's fine. So yeah, he's rooting for these Red Bull drivers, of course. Verstappen, though, did get beaten by Hamilton in that second session there. So hopefully we'll see Verstappen do a little bit better than last week.
Yes, so another option or another opportunity for Max Verstappen to take a grand slam this weekend has been stolen away from him by Lewis Hamilton. Race Control have noted car 23 of Alex Albon. His lap time of a 118.3 has been deleted.
Oh my word.
Does he? He does. He's eliminated.
Alex
He's down
Albon
in
is now out.
P14.
Alex Albon is now out as a result of track limits.
That means Zhou Guanyu stays in the next session.
Yeah, it does.
Good for him. He'll be a little bit happier about that. But, of course, very upsetting to have Alex Albon dropping out of the session. Yeah, let us know what you think about that.
I think Q3 will get going in just a little, say a couple of minutes. I think 2 minutes, maybe about just past quarter to the next hour. Race Control just noting where track limits were infringed. Turn 2 there, you see the same point where Logan Sargent went over the lines too much in one of the practice sessions. Alex Albon did the same thing, went over too much, just took the curb too close, and as a result, he's been eliminated. Quite a lot of love for Seb. He's getting all the love in the comments.
To give him bets later for all of you. But we're watching on at the moment. Alex Albon just looking there. Race Control have noted an incident involving Williams equipment. That was Williams equipment that was left out there. It wasn't the McLaren equipment. It was Williams. I forget that they've got Gulf on their cars for the season, so that was why there was the blue of that rear jack that was left out there, and Yuki Tsunoda's car hit into it.
So Andrew Townsend just telling us here, Tsunoda started from the back of the grid for changing engine parts, so helping Ricciardo down the straight to get a better time. So I suppose it doesn't really matter too much what Tsunoda did. I did forget that, I must be honest. I did forget that Tsunoda didn't really have to care too much about qualifying today because he will start from the back of the grid regardless of what happens because he's taken that engine change. So not too phased for Yuki Tsunoda, but still being very significantly outperformed by his counterpart, Ricciardo.
Yes, he really is being outperformed by Daniel Ricciardo at the moment, you would have to think, even though he is giving a little bit of assistance to his teammate. Just watching a massive Mexican wave in Mexico City. How apt.
It's about to say Mexican waves are starting to go around the baseball part of the stadium.
The Forever Motorports grandstand, that is.
Now, can you tell me where the Mexican wave originates from? What tournament and what event did the Mexican wave make its way into the world of all sport?
Bullfighting?
Nope. Came from the Football World Cup in Mexico, held in about the 1970s. That's when it was originated from. So just a little bit of something to get us through to Q3. So going into Q3, of course, we can go and end that poll very, very quickly there. Who do you think will top Q3? Q2's poll there ending. Max Verstappen getting 61% of the vote. Other getting 19%. That was probably Hamilton getting quite a few of the vote as well. So let us know who will top Q3.
Yes, who will cut the top Q3 in this next session? 344 of you watching alongside with us at the moment. King Gamer just saying Ricardo is getting more comfortable with the car now. Certainly quite glad to see that he is. Could we have him in contention though for the top 3?
I'm not sure the top 3, but certainly the top 5, I think.
A lot of really interesting masks being worn by the Mexican fans to look like Sergio Perez there. They're going to be really rooting for their home driver this weekend. But will he be able to get up on that front row of the grid for the start tomorrow? That is what we're going to have to wait and see while we wait for the lights to go out for this Q3 session.
Yeah, indeed. And Reece, I think, is going to give his predictions now as to his top 3. The poll is up. Go and tell us who you think is going to top the polls. But who do you think is going to finish our top 3 today?
I'm going to say Verstappen, Hamilton, Ricardo.
That's
Let's
a
do
huge
something
call.
different.
Huge call there from Reece. Love it. Absolutely love it. I'm going to say Hamilton, Verstappen, Russell. So that's what I'm going to say is our top 3. I'm going to say Hamilton will be the quickest driver in Mexico today.
The session is now underway as we're watching a whole bunch of drivers making their way out onto circuit. We do have Sergio Perez, the first of the drivers, leading each other out onto the track. We also have Oscar Piastri getting ready to leave the circuit now, or not leave the circuit, but leave the pits and get out onto the circuit. We also have Daniel Ricciardo. He's going to be following Max Verstappen. Hopefully he'll get a bit of a slipstream from Verstappen this time round instead of his teammate Yuki Tsunoda.
Well, I mean, it's going to be an interesting one. Perez, of course, leading us out right from the get-go. He's very far ahead of the rest of the grid. So just giving his fans, all of the Mexican fans that have made their way out to the track today, a little bit of a drive-by before starting his lap. So he's going to be leading it out. He's going to be putting the time out there to beat. I think Max Verstappen might well beat that time. And Ricciardo, as you say, it's going to be very interesting to see what he can do following Max Verstappen.
He needs to play relatively tactically to get close to the back of one, or close to the back of someone to get that DRS advantage, which could help him get higher up in the order for the start tomorrow.
Yeah, and Pureblood is voting for a Russell P1. He reckons Russell, Max, and then Piastri. So,
interesting call there for the top 3. For the race start tomorrow, we're watching on with Valtteri Bottas at the moment in his car. Sergio Perez going out on his hot lap at 37.7 is what he set in the middle sector. Waiting for him to finish up the lap now. Is it an out lap or is it a hot lap? I think it was an out lap.
Sergio Perez now starting his hot lap there. So he's going to get going now as the first hot lap of Q3 is underway. And all the Mexican fans giving their love to the Red Bull of Max Verstappen as he comes through that sector as well. So, yeah, let's see what happens here. For Sergio Perez and for Max Verstappen, those two Red Bulls, could they be aiming for a 1-2? That's also right up in the air. It's quite an interesting one. We don't know who's going to finish our top 3. The only thing I can say is I do not think we'll have Ferraris there.
No, I don't think we will have Ferraris in the top 3. Unfortunately, they look like they are just on the back foot here, I think, with their engines. Watching a replay of Sergio Perez going through turn 1, 2, and 3, he's looking relatively comfortable through there. Really quite confident as well, as Verstappen, though, has taken that fastest first sector overall.
Yeah, so Perez's first sector was at 27.6. Verstappen's the 27.4, more or less. So
much faster.
Much quicker from Max Verstappen there in Sector 1. Sergio Perez, though, seems to have more purple mini sectors in Sector 2 compared to Max Verstappen at the moment.
Verstappen's taken them away, though. But so is, I think, who is our...
Is that Piastri or
Ricardo.
Leclerc?
Ricardo's taking money sectors in the middle sector now. He could be getting that slipstream off of Max Verstappen. Verstappen has gotten the middle sector now. Well, Perez finishes up his lap time finally in the 117s with a 117.788. We've also got Hamilton now starting a hot lap.
Yeah, so noting Leclerc's got a purple sector in Sector 1. So for all he said, I don't think his Ferraris will be near the top there. He's trying to do something in this qualifying session. Max Verstappen now crosses the line almost into the 116s, a 117.286.
Not that much faster than what he did in that first
Ricardo,
session.
let's see what Ricardo can do. Ricardo could split the two of them. He does. Ricardo goes second, a 117.38. Unbelievable driving from the Australian.
I am so impressed with Daniel Ricciardo this race weekend. I did not expect him to be putting in lap times anywhere near this right now. Just watching a couple other drivers out on circuit, Charles Leclerc still rarely going around out there, as Carlos Sainz has taken the fastest lap now overall with a 117.233. Carlos Sainz out of nowhere.
Carlos Sainz, about to say, a hell of a good lap time there. Leclerc goes even quicker, 117.166. So clearly, these new, fresh, soft tyres working very well for the Ferraris to put them right near the top there. And for that, we said we weren't really going to expect too much from them. They've got into first and second right now, preliminarily, of course.
Yes. for now, they have gone into first and second. I don't know if the Red Bulls are on older sets of softs or if they're on the brand new set. We'll have to wait and see for the final runs of today what people's true pace are. We've seen their first runs. Now we're going to have to wait and see. They're all going to come back.
Everyone into the 117s there. Leclerc, as I say, very close to 116s. So surely we're going to see 116s towards the end of the session here. Disappointing laps from Piastri. Perez's lap was quick, but not quick enough. Hamilton and Russell also not quick enough in the 117.6s there. We need to see low 117s and even high 116s to put yourself on pole for tomorrow.
Yes, I think it's going to go down to possibly a 116 before the end of today. As we're watching on with Frederick Vasseur, the team principal of Ferrari, looking quite heated there, speaking to one of the engineers, just telling him what he wants for the run program, possibly. Just watching a moment for Max Verstappen as he comes through the middle sector, watching where he may have lost a bit of time quite deep on the one curb. He would have lost a few tenths through there, and then he was a bit wide coming through the final two corners. So a little bit compromised through the final sector. He can have a little bit more time to find, but he does say, when I box, just double check the front of the floor. Turn 8 was quite a harsh hit, so possibly causing himself some floor damage there.
Yeah, Zhou Guanyu has now made his way out onto the track for this session, so he's finally made his way out. Of course, he was in the pits for a while there. He's not thinking he's going to do much in this session. He's quite happy to have just got there, I think. So he's just going to have one attempt, I'm sure, in between everybody else, without any traffic, without having to fight with anybody. So he's going to go out now. He's going to set a time, and then he'll pretty much go to the pits, and he'll just, relax for the rest of the day.
400 of you watching alongside with us at the moment. Thank you very much for joining the live stream. And do be sure to check out all of our channel partners, BitDefender and BOYLESPORTS, down in the description. But who are we supporting for the top of the pole positions for this race weekend?
Sorry, I was just noticing something here. Yeah, so we are supporting...
Oh, sorry.
No, it's a PNG. Who are we supporting, I suppose?
Well, I think for the top of pole position, Max Verstappen, you can never really discount. But who else could be able to take that top spot today? I think Leclerc and Sainz.
Well, they've definitely put their names up there. I think Ricardo can still try and do something out of nowhere.
Is really quite impressive today, as Zhou Guanyu is going out at the moment on his first hot lap of Q3. Will he be able to set a competitive lap time out there? As he comes through the final sector now, he finishes up his lap, and I think it's only his out lap, so nothing competitive just yet.
Yeah, so we've still got 5 minutes more or less, just over 5 minutes left of the session. Zhou Guanyu starting his hot lap here. Let's see what he can do on a set of softs. He's got brand new softs on to have a good attempt. Let's see if he can get a very good lap time in. It's going to be a difficult one though. He's got nobody to follow. He's got no track lines to sort of get an understanding of. So he's got a clean circuit, so there's a bit of an advantage and as well as a disadvantage. There's no slipstreams, but at the same time, there's no dirty air. So let's go see how he does in Sector 1. Lots of personal best, 27.6, quite a bit slower than most of the grid there, although Perez was quite close to that sort of time. So he might be looking at Perez's times. He needs to get into the 29 seconds for Sector 2 if he wants to be competitive, though I think they realize, Alfa Romeo and Zhou, that it's not going to be quick enough.
0.3 at the moment, down on Charles Leclerc's time. That puts him around George Russell in 5th.
Well, let's see what he does in the second sector.
He's able to hold up this lap.
30.1, so still too slow. So I think Zhou Guanyu is going to be right at the back of the grid. And I think it's going to be his one lap. He's going to come into the pits afterwards. Bottas, of course, his teammate. He could do something, though. I think he certainly has the ability to get somewhere closer. Zhou Guanyu, I just don't think is quite good enough in this car yet to sort of challenge those top runners.
Lindiwe there in the comment section saying that AlphaTauri have not finished in the top 4 since Pierre Gasly's race win in Italy in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a stat there, of course. Zhou Guanyu crosses the line, a 1:18.050, so he just goes ahead of his teammate Valtteri Bottas, but Bottas will be coming out of the pits with the rest of them, and I'm sure he'll go on to beat that time. So Zhou Guanyu has put his one time in. As we see now, the McLaren of Piastri make his way out onto the track, as has Valtteri Bottas now, as we talk about it. Looking here at Theo Pourchaire, of course, reserve driver for Alfa Romeo. Very disappointing for him yesterday, not able to get any times really in that Alfa Romeo after lots of issues with the car in practice 1.
Yes, it was a difficult day out for Theo yesterday, as you said, having brake issues on that Alfa Romeo car, not being able to set any lap times on the circuit, only being able to do outlaps. We're watching a bunch of other drivers on their outlaps now. Carlos Sainz making his way around the circuit to start his final flying lap. ahead of the race tomorrow.
Yes, so as he's starting his final, well, as he's going around to start his final lap, let's just quickly say, please be sure to go and like the video and subscribe to the channel. We will be heading on to a live review straight after this. It is all set up, it's all there, so just don't go anywhere. You'll be dragged on into that, and you'll meet us there. You let us know your comments about what happened in qualifying then and there, and also your thoughts about who do you think will win the Grand Prix after that. But we still got just about 2.5 minutes left of this session, and it's going to be right down to the wire in terms of who will finish on pole, and will rather start on pole position for tomorrow's Mexican Grand Prix.
Piastri will be one of the first drivers to start their final hot laps. That puts him at a tiny bit of a disadvantage because the track does rubber up a little bit, but it at least allows him to get that banker lap in case everyone else does run into an issue with the yellow flag.
It's the banker lap, and if he makes a mistake, he has the option to then back off halfway through the lap and then regenerate and go one more time. Whereas everybody else is definitely going to have only one attempt.
Watching with the current world champion Max Verstappen making his way out on his outlap.
So you see Piastri's gone quite slowly in Sector 1. So he's actually seemingly going to maybe slow down in Sector 2, one imagines. I think he's going to slow down.
It looks like he has already, yes.
Well, he's got personal best still being registered, so maybe he's still going for it. I think he is still going for it. So let's see what he can do.
Yes, I do see a purple mini sector for him there in that middle sector. 2 minutes left to go of the session. Now, really quite exciting. What are these two Ferraris going to be able to do as Charles Leclerc is going out there on circuit? And Sergio Perez is getting a bit of a slipstream off the back of Leclerc.
Yeah, so Sergio Perez taking advantage of that Ferrari that's following on from Carlos Sainz. Just noting, Piastri's got a couple of purple mini sectors. Look at Perez's mini sectors that he's putting in. Lots of purple mini sectors for Perez there in Sector 1. So he could be putting in a very quick time as Piastri is finishing up his lap now. Around the final corner, he moves into 5th. It's not going to be good enough, I don't think. I think he's going to drop further down. I think he might start only down in 8th. It's not a quick enough lap from Piastri. I'm not sure he's going to have enough time to get back around. So, unless he really motors it. Perez, though, of course, doing very well. Sainz, let's see where he can finish up, of course, as well.
Verstappen goes around the first sector, not able to improve on that fastest first sector with a 27.3. We have Charles Leclerc as well out on circuit, setting some purple mini sectors, not improving on his sector times, but he is going milliseconds faster in certain parts.
I think he's pretty much bang on for his current time. He might move into the 116s if he just nails the last sector. Let's see how he does around these couple of final corners as Charles Leclerc now does approach the final corner. Where does he move? Will he go quicker? A 117.16 right now. A 117.79 was his tap time there, so slower, quite a bit slower.
Max Verstappen, though, fastest in the middle sector. Will he be able to steal that pole position away from the pole sitter right now? Charles Leclerc, he comes through the final two corners now, as does Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo puts himself up into 4th. Max Verstappen does not improve with a 117.2.
No, so indeed, we're just noting Perez is only in 5th. Verstappen only in 3rd. He cannot seem to improve upon it, and I don't think he's going to have time to go around. So we could have a Ferrari 1-2, unless we see something from Piastri. Will Piastri get across? No, he won't. That is the end of the session, unless I see both, obviously, the Mercedes can still try and do something. A couple of purple mini sectors for Hamilton. Could he try and spoil the party for Ferrari? But Ferrari pretty much know that it's a 1-2. They're pretty much just waiting for the Mercedes to finish up because, yeah, I mean, don't think they're going to be able to go quickly enough.
Hamilton is going relatively fast through the middle sector, but not improving on sector time.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. I think that is going to be it. They recognize it. Ferrari recognize it. It's a 1-2 start for Ferrari in Mexico, out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere, as you say, they are not taking new engines for this race weekend. We were expecting them to be slow down the straights. Were we wrong? Definitely we were. Not a predicted 1-2 start from the podium, well, from pole position tomorrow, with Charles Leclerc taking pole position here in qualifying. Carlos Sainz close behind him, 0.067 seconds is what splits them. Verstappen in 3rd by 0.097 seconds. Then Daniel Ricciardo in the AlphaTauri in 4th. Sergio Perez 5th. Lewis Hamilton 6th. Piastri 7th. George Russell in 8th. Bottas in 9th. And Zhou Guanyu finishing up our top 10 for qualifying.
Yeah, a very, very interesting qualifying session, and we're going to go and review it straight away. So do not go anywhere. You're going to join us on the channel in the next for a live review of qualifying. But otherwise, you've been on Forever Motorsports, joined by Mark and Reece. And, of course, big shout out to BITDEFENDER and BOYLESPORTS, our sponsors. Guys, we'll see you in the next session.